Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались з кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 821 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And Ukraine is striking targets they've never even hit before in a major escalation. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, as we have seen that today, Ukraine struck a nuclear early warning radar system inside the Russian Federation. And not only that, at the exact same time, we started to hear that the Russian Federation, specifically Putin, is once again looking at trying to end the war and freeze the front lines where they are, showing that Putin has practically given up on achieving any real success in the war in Ukraine, and that the war is going so badly at this point that it will be expected to start entering a backslide for the Russian Federation, and we will probably see that the Ukrainians over time will either be able to regain their land or the Russians will be forced out of the war. This is huge. Unbelievably huge news, not just for the early warning system that was hit, but also the news that we're getting from the Russian government. Not only that, but we were able to get some additional news from the area of the East Asian region on what is going on in between China and Taiwan. We did not see a lot of action today, but we did see a couple of diplomatic actions being taken that are showing us that at the moment, tensions are wildly high, and we do not know when those will subside. But moving on into the breaking news that we have tonight, starting off in the area around Rostov-on-Don, to start us off with something that is a little exciting to look at, we were able to see that a nuclear early warning radar was damaged. And oh buddy, was it damaged. This thing looks like it may have had its entire foundation possibly damaged, quite a large deal. And when I say foundation, I mean towards the base of the building, not directly on its actual foundation. It appears to be about a story or two above the ground, but it appears that an explosion rocked the entire radar and knocked it out. This is huge. I cannot state this enough. This is very big because this radar system here that is in the region of Krasnodar inside of Russia, or really near the area of Armavir inside of Russia, which I'll actually pull up right here. And so let me go to Armavir, Russia, which is right down here, and then out in the countryside, somewhere near to Armavir, and let me see if I can find this really quickly, is the radar system that we saw in... I be dipped. It's
somewhere out here in a patch all by itself. It's like a little patch of land out in the middle, like a field area. So it should be pretty visible.
Let's see. Is that it? Nope. Dude, I don't know what it is, but I'll geolocate these things before a stream, and then I'm like, oh, let me come down here, and then it just completely slips my mind where in the world this even is. Really quickly, we can actually see it right here, and so
that's easier.
Yeah, let's type in the Armavir radar station, and oh, look, we can actually just. You've got to be freaking kidding me. It was right there. We literally went over it. Okay, so anyways, the Armavir radar station that got hit is right here. And the two installations that we saw hit, and it looks like the picture's already been uploaded to Google Earth, are these two buildings right here, which from what we understand are a part of the radar's system. These buildings have been completely knocked out, and considering the severity, well, not really considering the severity, but considering the importance of this radar station to the Russian Federation, the damage is severe. The Armavir radar station is a part of the nuclear early warning system that the Russian Federation possesses. The reason that this thing exists is that it's supposed to be able to detect incoming nuclear weapons from a considerable distance and be able to alert the Russian central government of what is going to be happening on in the future, really within minutes, considering that this is supposed to be tracking intercontinental ballistic missiles, and then let the Russian government do whatever they need to do to try and prepare for this to, run its course, whatever would be coming its way. But the fact of the matter is that it will not be doing that anymore, as the radar station has been completely knocked out of action. Both of the radar buildings appear to have been knocked out. We can see a very large hole in the middle of one building, and it appears that the second floor of the other has almost been completely destroyed. But this is clearly giving us a sign that the radar station near Armavir has been completely knocked out, entirely destroyed, and may not be in action again at any point in the future, considering how I guess you could say, technologically advanced the system is, and considering that the Russians probably don't have a lot of funds to throw that way, or for that matter, may even have the access to the technology, things might be a little bit more difficult for them going on forward. But we were also...
That's my question as well. Nobody's really gone over this just yet, and I don't have the numbers myself. But knowing how advanced that system is, that early detection system for ICBMs, I wonder how much in dollars that was in damage, because that was a very advanced system to get hit dead on like that. And I know the entire system wasn't destroyed. It was just a building that was damaged. We're not really sure exactly what part of it was destroyed, but I'm sure that's a pretty big bill to fix that.
And let's see here, Armavir radar station. I wonder if we can get a little bit of additional information on this. And so... here we go. So let's read a little bit about it. Armavir radar station is an early warning radar station in Armavir and Krasnodar Krai in Russia. It is a key part of the Russian early warning system against missile attacks and is run by the Russian Space Forces. There are two radars here. One faces southwest and one southeast. They provide radar coverage of the Middle East. So these radars right here, and these are actually the radars that got hit, are facing, and let me make sure, southwest, which would be this one, and then southeast, which is the one over here on the eastern side of the compound. And these two are faced directly down into the direction, if we zoom out, of the Middle East, all pretty much spanning the entire area of Turkey and all the way over to Iran, and giving them coverage of the entirety of the area. This means that, as of right now, from what we understand, the radar systems were hit, not random buildings. These are actually the radars themselves that we see in these pictures and these videos that got hit. And now the Russians are completely blind to any kind of threats that could be coming towards Russia from the Middle East. We don't really know who in the world would be launching nuclear weapons from the Middle East. The best thing I could ever say as far as the Russian threat would be concerned would be U.S. nuclear launches from Turkey. That would probably be one of the things that they would be most concerned about with that radar station. And now with it being knocked out, they're completely blind about what could be happening in the Middle East towards Russia in a nuclear fashion. It's also really interesting.
In reality, though, I'm not really sure like how useful it really was, because it was literally hit dead on by Ukrainian drones, and the system apparently didn't even detect that. Where was the early warning for the literal attack on the facility itself that was designed to detect these things like this? It's like how really useful was it?
That's a good question, Matty. Well, we could always think of multiple factors, like will the Russians probably be sorely pissed about this? Most likely so, I would assume. Another thing that's really interesting about it as well is that, from what I would guess, it's looking the wrong way, because when we think about it, these little radar relays right here are not looking towards Ukraine. They're looking the completely opposite direction of where the drones came from. Because when we go back and look at the pictures in the other clip that we had right here, we can see that one of the explosions, well, actually both of the explosions, it seems, hit on the back side of the radar. This one appears to have hit from this side of the radar, and this giant white block is the radar. So it hit on this side and pretty much blasted out everything on that area of the radar system. And then the other drone literally pilot drived itself right into the back of the other radar and blew it up. So I'm not really sure how effective they were at trying to pick up threats coming from the Middle East. But one thing's for certain, they can't pick up threats that are behind them where they're not looking, because it looks like the drones were able to hit it without any issue. And in fact, we didn't even hear any reports of air defense being active towards these drones, any breaches of Russian air defense, or anything like that for that matter. This was pretty much brand spanking news, something that we didn't even know was going to happen. And we can also see right here, from a farm field where that is near to the radar site, we were also able to see the damage to the radar buildings right there. I gotta say, it's really weird and surreal to think that Ukraine is just knocking out pretty much key components of the Russian defense system, and they're not really putting in a lot of money or effort into it anymore. This was a low effort thing in reality, just to fly a drone into here and then just ram it into a radar. That's fairly low effort. It just takes a couple of guys sitting in an office with a multi-$1,000 drone and then just let them do their thing. And the Russians are somehow taking, I would assume, hundreds of millions of dollars of damage, maybe even billions of dollars of damage in this radar system alone from such a low effort attack by Ukraine. But it is starting to show that the Russians are woefully under-equipped in the air defense realm. They have absolutely nothing left. And not only that, Ukraine is starting to not only jeopardize the Russian armed forces and possibly the Russian government, but they're also jeopardizing Russian national security, because now Russia cannot see what would be coming towards them from the Middle East, which gives me an idea things will not be going well, at least in the Russian Ministry of Defense here soon, even with the new Ministry of Defense who's just been appointed. But moving on from that little bit of news near the Amravir radar station down in southern Krasnodar, and we're actually going to be move these markers so that way they're accurate. So they're right about down. Oh, come on. Work with me here. They're right about down here. So we'll leave those there. And moving on from that and up into the area of Moscow, we were also able to hear the very interesting news that Putin wants to freeze the war. Now, this is something that really was interesting to me. And according to what we hear, the Kremlin is ready for peace talks if Russia retains the border along the current front line. And this was cited by Reuters, which cited 4 Russian sources on the matter. And so another senior, well, one of the senior officials from one of these Russian sources said, Putin can fight as long as it takes, but Putin is also ready for a ceasefire to freeze the war. And that kind of a wordage right there is showing us that the Russian Federation is starting to get a mindset, at least within the government, that the war is lost. I mean, and a lot of people are going to be going, the war isn't lost. They're still out there. No, nope, they're not. They're doing quite poorly, and I'll show you why. Let me just move up here to their brand new offensive that has about 50,000 guys in it, and let me show you what they've done over the past 24 hours. They've lost ground. Like, they actually lost a little bit of ground over here, and they're putting everything they can into this offensive. It was a complete surprise. Ukrainian forces weren't even in the area. They had to redeploy reserves and other units from across different areas of the front to respond to this Russian push. And even at that, they still are not making any progress. And not only that, we got news today that the Russians are having to pull their forces from Africa and relocate them into the Kharkiv offensive just to find manpower, because that's how strapped the Russian army is right now for usable combat troops and manpower in that category. This is also another thing that I'd like to point out, is that they said Putin is ready for a ceasefire to freeze the war. And while it's showing that Putin would want to hold on to what they have, it's showing that Putin also has apparently no idea that they would be able to take anything more than what they already got. And that's something that's a very telltale sign as well. They're not wanting to claim the rest of the Donbass. They're not wanting the rest of Donetsk and the rest of Luhansk that are controlled by Ukraine, or the rest of Zaporizhzhia and Kherson. They just want to freeze it where it is. And this is giving us a very good lead that Putin and the Ministry of Defense clearly understand at this point that Russian offensive objectives will never be achieved beyond this point in any large scale. And if they were, it would take years, if not decades, to be able to achieve them even in the Donbass area. That, once again, is leading me to believe that this is something that the Russians know they're starting to lose, and that Putin may actually be giving up on this conflict, because it's starting to prove, especially with additional U.S. support coming in, that there is going to be no way to really defeat Ukraine. The United States will always outspend the Russian Federation, and by outspending them alone and providing Ukraine with that equipment, the Russians will inevitably lose. They may as well be fighting against the Energizer Bunny at this point, because it will not run out of equipment or ammunition or really energy anytime soon. And so, going off of that, I would certainly say that this war may be over. I mean, like, it's not over today, and the war will keep on going for a while. But as far as the conflict is concerned, about will the Russians make any more ground? Will the Ukrainians lose? Will the Russians lose? I think that's all kind of in the bag at this point. It looks as though, to me, that the Ukrainians will be able to eke out a victory in this, and maybe even push the Russians back. Because one thing I know for certain, with this kind of talk coming out, and it's starting to become very clear that the Russian government is greatly discouraged right now in this conflict, Ukraine is not going to go to peace negotiations right now. There is plenty of land that's still in Russian control, and plenty of it to reclaim. And if the Russians are already starting to show that they really just want to hold on to what they have, it's showing that with a little bit of extra time, they may not even be able to hold on to that anymore either. And they may end up starting to lose this ground once the Ukrainians are able to conduct their counteroffensives in the later part of this year, or sometime in the fall. And so it's sometime next year during the spring more so, sorry about that correction. But beyond that, this is something that I would believe is certainly going to end up being a major ordeal. This is a bombshell revelation that we just came to today, that we just heard from the Russian government. And it's clearly showing to me this war and its end is only a matter of time. Much like we've been saying on this channel, it now looks like that is actually going to be a reality. But moving on from that, another thing that's also starting to show that the Russian government is, well, really the Russian Federation is in a state of decay is the fact that the Armavir early warning system was stricken and destroyed by Ukrainian drones just this morning. And a lot of people have been talking about what they're thinking on that. Some people think that it's a valid target for Ukraine to strike. Some people say that it risks nuclear escalation for some reason. Some people say that it's risky for some reason, but they need more info. And some people are unsure for some reason. I don't know why I said for some reason through all of that. But nevertheless, I hope that does kind of give you all the idea of what everyone's been saying right now. But Matthew, what are people really thinking, and what are you thinking about the Armavir radar station being hit? Do you think that was a valid target, or not so much?
All right, so on that early warning facility being hit, the big question is that wise for Ukraine to hit a target like that? 86% said yes, it is certainly a valid target for Ukraine, while 6% said, it seems kind of risky, but I need more info about it, and 5% said no, it risks a nuclear escalation. And to answer the question, is it wise? I'm kind of in the middle, to be honest with you. But it is certainly a valid target because it is a military weapon that Russia is using to basically backtrack the launch sites of ATACMS missiles, which allows Russia to target these facilities where the Ukrainians are launching those missiles from, and then they can attack those places where the Ukrainian soldiers are housed. So certainly it's being used by Russia to fight the war in Ukraine, so it's a valid military target. However, there's always a risk when countries start attacking nuclear warning systems, because that could easily be spun by the Russians as an attack on their nuclear infrastructure, which could be used as a justification to take further escalations against Ukraine in a sort of extreme way, not just in the military, like on the ground, but maybe in a nuclear direction. So that's a risk, but at the same time, though, I think Ukraine has to take that risk. So while I'm in the middle about it being wise, I think the justification outweighs the cons. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say I believe that it's certainly a valid target for Ukraine, simply for the fact that it is a target that is a military installation being operated by the Russian Space Forces, which would qualify it as a legitimate target in war. I would say without a doubt that the Ukrainian attack on this installation will not risk a nuclear conflict and is entirely a valid target to be able to hit and destroy. Also, on top of that, from what we understand, the Armavir radar station has really no impact on Ukraine, considering that the radars are not facing towards Ukraine, they're facing towards the Middle East. So as far as the war in Ukraine goes...
Now on that topic, on that statement right there, I was told by an expert that these systems right here, these early warning systems, are used by Russia to help triangulate the launch sites of the ATACMS inside of Ukraine, and then they can attack the launch site. So that's what I was told. Me personally, I don't know because I'm not an expert on it, but that's what I was told by an expert.
It may be so. I didn't get to hear that, unfortunately. But from what I understand, based off of what we read really just a moment ago, and let me go pull it up again. This is Wikipedia, but, you know, it's the quickest thing I have access to right now. Let's see. The station was described as starting to operate at the end of 2006. So it's actually fairly new as a radar station. And then entering, let's see, lost coverage. Let's see. In May 2012, it was announced it would go on combat duty. Let's see here. Voronezh radar. Let's see, they're described as Voronezh DM with a stated range of 2,600 miles, which is actually pretty freaking big. Let's see here. And so, moving on from that. So, from what I'm understanding, from what I'm reading here, this radar installation was made because the Ukrainians started to deny access after the Orange Revolution, I believe in 2004, to the Russians to be able to use and gain intel and data from one of the radar stations that was built in Ukraine inside of Crimea near Sevastopol. And so they decided after 2004 to build this radar station in the area of Armavir to continue to keep an eye on the Middle East, as the radar system in Crimea was also built from the exact same purpose and literally just looked straight at Turkey to see if Turkey was going to do anything, considering that's a NATO country and that U.S. nuclear forces, or really NATO nuclear forces, could be stationed there. So from what we can understand, it does seem as though that this radar station, at least from a quick read over, wouldn't have much to do with Ukraine. It more so has to do with picking up nuclear missiles flying in from the Middle East. But that's just from a quick read. I might be wrong on that, so take it with a grain of salt. But beyond that, whether it's looking at Ukraine and detecting missiles there, or whether it's detecting missiles in the Middle East, it is a military target, and for that reason, it's completely fair game. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion, from what I could find. But with that, it is now time for us to move on. And to move on into what Putin is doing today. Because Putin visited Belarus for the first time in 6 months as of today. And we were able to get a little bit of footage of this. Where you see the Russian Air Force One pulling up to the red carpet. I believe it's an Ilyushin 96. And that's the end of the clip. Oh, I'm sorry, correction. Wait, it repeats? What the hell? Like, it repeats
That's
for
weird.
some reason. That is very weird. But anyways, Putin is currently inside of Belarus at the moment and is currently visiting Lukashenko, whatever you want to call him, to talk about things. We don't know what they're going to be talking about, but they will be talking about things. And we've also started...
Also, isn't it true as well that I heard that Putin brought along Viktor Yanukovych, I believe it said,
Yanukovych?
Yanukovych, and he was apparently involved with trying to become the overthrower or the successor to Zelenskyy, from what I've heard. He was along with him, from what I saw in the reports.
One second, I want to make sure to pull that up because actually, Viktor Yanukovych is a former president of Ukraine, and this is actually something very interesting here because the reason why he's with Putin, it is actually a very complicated thing. And yes, this actually does line up. So here is what I know about Viktor Yanukovych, just to quickly lay this out. Viktor Yanukovych was the president of Ukraine when the Revolution of Dignity occurred in 2014, or as they call it, the Euromaidan Revolt, if you want to call it that. But beyond that, this guy was the president of Ukraine, and he was actually, I believe, going to allow the extradition of Ukrainians to Russia for crimes and a couple of other things as well. But he was wildly unpopular. It led to the Euromaidan, and that's what ended up leading him to abdicate as president of Ukraine and flee to Russia, which really started to show how deep the ties were with Viktor Yanukovych and the Russian Federation, which is something that the Ukrainian public was very certain of. They didn't have exact proof when they were conducting the Euromaidan, but they said that he was tied into the Russian government and practically trying to turn Ukraine into a puppet of the Russian Federation. And when the guy packed up and ran, and he didn't run to Europe, he ran to Russia, it seemed very clear at that point that this guy was, in fact, pretty much a Russian plant. Not really a plant in the literal sense, like many of y'all would know, but nevertheless, the guy was a very corrupt dude, pretty much working for the Russians. And so that is why he is there right now. And when the war originally began, we did hear that there was a plan that if the Russians took Kyiv, they were going to depose Zelenskyy as president and put him under arrest as an illegal leader of Ukraine, and then install Viktor Yanukovych as the president of Ukraine again. That's what the plan was. And so you are correct. Viktor Yanukovych did in fact go to Belarus today, and Putin has kind of been moving him around whenever the politicking needs to be done with Ukraine in Russia to make it look like this guy is the actual president of Ukraine who was wrongfully deposed from his position. Although the guy wasn't...
I noticed that too as well today. I saw Putin say that he doesn't even want to deal with Zelenskyy anymore. He wants him gone, and he wants the quote-unquote legitimate leader of Ukraine put back in there. So that's why I was asking about that, because I was thinking, why is he dragging this guy around with him? Literally everywhere he goes when it comes to revolving around Ukraine, this guy is always in tow, and that's why.
Yeah, and also another thing, why does this guy look like a Madame Tussauds figure? You know, like he looks like he's made of wax.
Man, well, if you're around Putin, he literally sucks your blood out of your body because that's it. And then the next step is the window, I think.
Blah, 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 I'm going to suck your blood. Blah, blah. But beyond that, but anyways, that's the best way I can explain why Viktor Yanukovych was in Belarus with Putin today and kind of being carried around like a lapdog, sort of. That is the reason why. But moving on from Viktor Yanukovych, we were able to hear a rumor, Matthew, a rumor, that apparently Putin will personally visit North Korea in the future. We were able to hear that today. according to the Kremlin.
Man.
So it's not a rumor. It's actually the Kremlin saying he plans on visiting North Korea. And also, I like this picture, which is from the last time that he visited North Korea, because he looks like he doesn't even want to be there. Like, he looks like he hates it.
Man, I'm just saying, but you got Kim Jong-un over there eyeballing him, side-eyeing him like he's confused if he's Putin or a Twinkie at this point. Putin's like, oh man, he's confusing me for snack.
That's it, dude. Putin's like, man, the levels I go to just to try and keep control of Russia, man. Back in the day,
he feels like a punk for groveling for the weapons. The look is literally all over his face.
dude, he goes to North Korea and he sees people that are so starving they're literal walking skeletons, and he's like, man, the shit I do. He says that's what his face looks like. He's like, the people I beg with. He's like, man, this sucks. This is terrible. And then Kim Jong-un is over there and he's like, does he have more food? Like, he's like, bro, did he bring snacks? Oh, man. This is a terrible picture, but nevertheless, according to the Kremlin, Putin will visit North Korea soon, and I have a feeling it's to try and grovel for more weapons from North Korea. Will he be successful in that? Maybe not. Maybe so. We don't really know. It depends on how much food the Russians plan on giving the North Koreans, in all honesty, because the North Koreans are desperate for food. Like, I'm not even kidding right now. That's like one of the big things that is a problem in North Korea. It still is that after the, let's see, how do we put it? How do I say this without getting in trouble with the YouTube? Oh, I know. When the Wuhan whirlybird came through and everyone kind of got screwed, North Korea shut down its borders because they were scared of everyone dying in the country. But the Wuhan whirlybird got into North Korea and ended up killing off a lot of people because there's really no medical care in North Korea. And not only that, at the exact same time, when North Korea shut down their borders to try and stop the spread of it, they actually ended up completely shutting off any imports of food from China, meaning that North Korea, a completely unarable country that has really no agriculture of its own, shut itself off from even getting food. So the population started to starve. And from what we understand, while the North Korean government is keeping this very quiet right now, the famine that they've been going through and are still going through right now is worse than the Great Famine of the 90s. And so the North Koreans are truly desperate from the Chinese and the Russians to get any food anywhere into North Korea. It is that bad that they will give anything at this point. Weapons, anything. Oil, well, they don't really have any oil, but they have loads of coal. They will give literally anything material to get food because otherwise the population is plummeting right now because most of them are starving to death still. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least with the story of why North Korea will most likely give more weapons to Russia if they get more food. It's not about money, it's just about eating. But with that, and no pun intended, because Kim Jong-un is pretty fat, and you would think that's a joke about him being fat. No, it's actually just everyone's starving, so they have to find food. But with that, we're now going to be, while we're in the area of East Asia, talking about Putin about a visit North Korea. I'm going to give you all the two updates that we have from today of what's going on with China and Taiwan, or as we call it on this channel, the People's Republic of China and the Republic of China. Two totally different countries with pretty much identical names. But inside of Beijing, we were able to hear today that apparently, according to, and let me make sure that we get the source correct, UKR report, China has warned the United States to end all visits to Taiwan and adhere to its one China policy or be prepared to suffer the consequences. That sounds pretty direct to us, doesn't it? It doesn't sound like the same thing they said to Japan, where they said they'll burn in hell, but it is kind of getting a little bit strongly worded. We haven't gotten an official U.S. response to that at the moment, but we'll be waiting to see one, and then we'll report it to you all as soon as we get it. We were also able to see a little clip from Chinese media today showing that they are on national TV hyping up the quote-unquote unification or reunification of China. Here's the clip. I like the CGI here.
I'm feeling real reunified watching this whole, montage. I'm feeling as reunified as that guy over there that's high on something.
Dude, this guy looks like he is high on, that... I don't even know, man. It's
high on the CCP's power. He said, I'm just high on it all.
Bro, he's like, man, I get to execute the sinners. I like it. I like it up here. Look at that. The rockets rain from space. Look at that.
Man, nothing like reunifying with those missiles, I'm telling you what.
Man, I'm telling you what, that peaceful reunification is coming around the corner. But anyways, that's the end of that clip. Just wanted to show y'all something, a little something that the Chinese TV put together, talking about the reunification of Taiwan. And it does appear that they are pretty hard set on possibly retaking Taiwan here even in the near future. And so hopefully they don't, because that would be a pretty stupid idea. But if they try to, hopefully the United States will be there to help them out. And I just saw James in say, it's all fake. Yeah, we pointed that out. It's to try and hype up the Chinese public and get them ready for the mindset of war. That's what it's about. It's not about it being real. It's about them hyping up the public, just like we were saying a moment ago. But with that, that's all the updates that we have right now from East Asia, just showing y'all a little bit of what's going on over there. And also, really quickly, I do want to give a shout out about this because I know that we have someone here with us tonight who did an incredible bit of work to put this together, which is Frostbright Productions, who made us a special Taiwan intro for Taiwan and for Taiwan news coverage. The thing is that he wanted us to use it tonight, but I want to hold it back, Frostbright, because soon, well, hopefully not soon, but soon, there may be a war that breaks out with Taiwan, and I want to make sure that we can use that intro when it really counts the most, and if a conflict begins, or if it hits headlines again, where that is the main news of the night. If that is the case, we will make sure to throw up that intro, and a huge shout out to Frostbright Productions, who helped us out with an incredible intro, and hopefully, honestly, y'all will never have to see it, because if y'all do, it will not be great. That means a war has probably begun in East Asia. But if y'all do see it, it's a very, very good intro. I mean, it's incredible and top-notch work. So a huge shout out to Frostbright Productions for making that, because it was incredibly good. But moving on out of East Asia, considering that I just want to make sure to cover that while we were here, we did get to hear that apparently, from what some people have heard, Viktor Yanukovych may be what Putin wants to be the leader of Ukraine. And Matthew, what were people thinking about that? Do they think that Putin really wanted that, or didn't want that? What were they thinking, Matthew? What happened?
All right, so this is a very, very fresh poll, about 30 seconds in, because I screwed the first one up and I put some nonsensical poll options and made people think they were crazy. So this is about a minute in. It looks like about 66% of the people said Putin wants to install a new guy in Ukraine, and it looks like about 27% said Putin wants to rule Ukraine himself, and 4% said it's too early to tell. And for me personally, I think the fact that Victor fellow, who I can't pronounce his last name really, Yanukovych. I believe that Putin is carrying that guy around because he's basically telling everyone that if I can win in Ukraine, this is who I'm going to put in charge, and he's going to be the new dictator that he's going to put in Ukraine to basically rule it like Belarus, like a puppet state. So that's what I think. I don't really think that Putin wants to rule Ukraine himself. I think he would simply put a puppet in place, and that's what he would probably go with. But of course, it would be the Russian dictatorship from that point forward. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say he probably would appoint him, because we already knew at the beginning of the war that he certainly had a plan for that, and it doesn't look like they've abandoned that. It looks like they would want him to be the dictator of Ukraine, and honestly, that guy's got a pretty sweet deal, because if the Russians ever did take over, he pretty much just gets to be Lukashenko of Ukraine, as corrupt as he wants to be, a totalitarian dictator, and all he has to do is just wait around. And if they lose, he just sits there and sits in Russia and just hopes that the Ukrainian SBU doesn't come and take his lights out. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and it really covers that, because that is something that a lot of people were talking about when we brought up Viktor Yanukovych, and I hope I was able to address that the best I can. And a lot of people are going, Yanukovych. Yep, that's how I'm saying it. That's how Matthew's saying it. And I thank y'all so much for correcting that, because my goodness gracious, is it hard to say names sometimes. And also, while Matthew's the one, he was like, I don't know how to say it. I didn't know how to say it for the longest time. I think I said Yanukovych or something like that. It was something completely different. So then I finally learned it was Yanukovych, which is something that does not come inherently to people from the South. That's not the way we say things. But moving on from that, it is now time for us to move on into the area of Ukraine, because we have a decent amount of news coming out of Ukraine, specifically about how the offensives have been going by the Russians, and oh, believe me, it's been poor. It's bad. So let's move on into it. let's start off with our location unknowns. So that way we can warm ourselves up into getting into those frontline segments and then talking about frontline breakdowns about what we've been seeing. But we were able to see a new Ukrainian armored fighting vehicle. This is the Ottoman. And I know many of y'all are saying, hey, it looks like I can't rest my feet on that. Well, be patient. You can. It is an Ottoman 6x6 armored fighting vehicle produced by the manufacturer NGO Pratica. And it is in a digital camouflage pattern right here. Let me see if I can get y'all some better pictures of the Ottoman 6x6. And so, let's see here, the Ottoman.
It's kind of sick looking. I'm not going to lie. The design looks pretty good. But I'm not sure if I would have called it the Ottoman, especially after what the Turks have done thus far. I would not call it that.
Turkey doing Turkey things. But this is what the Ottoman looks like with a turret. And I just realized, Matthew, that while it looks cool, that is literally just a turret from a 2S1 Avdiivka that was put on top of an APC. Let me go get that 2S1.
Yeah, the body of it looks like that French vehicle, whatever it's called. That one that France supplied a ton of.
The VAB?
Not the VAB. It looks like that the other one, that the AMX-10.
Yeah, it kind of does a little bit. Honestly, I think it looks a lot like the Polish Rosimak a good bit. But also, this is where the turret comes from. You can see it right here, the 2S1 Avdiivka turret right there. And you can see they literally just planted it on top of this APC that was on display. So I don't really know how effective that would be. It would be good for infantry support. I don't think it would be good in an anti-armor role at all, but that's not really what AFVs or IFVs are made for. They're really more so made for infantry support, not really anti-armor. But still, this one doesn't really appear to have the 2S1 turret. It actually looks like it may have a BTR-4 turret under that tarp up there. But nevertheless, a very interesting looking armored vehicle. And also, a lot of people are saying, looks like an AMX-10. Some people are saying a little bit that it looks like a Rosmec. So let me pull up the AMX-10. And let's see, here's the AMX-10. That's what the AMX-10 looks like. And then let me go pull up the Rosmac IFV right here. And let me show you the Rosmac. So this is the Rosmac. This is the AMX-10. And then this is the Ottoman. Honestly, I think it looks a lot like a Rosmec, just shortened down a little bit. So instead of being an 8-wheeled vehicle, it's a 6-wheeled vehicle. But it does kind of look a little bit like the AMX-10 as well.
A little bit. It's pretty close.
What do y'all think in the chat? Do y'all think this thing got inspiration more so from the AMX-10 or from the Rosmac? Let us know in the chat, because I'm very interested to know, because I can see where it got design inspirations from both of them, but which one do y'all think it leans more heavily into, the Rosmac or the AMX-10? Because I'm really interested to know what y'all are thinking. But, moving on from that really cool APC that the Ukrainians are making, we also got to see how a Russian is lighting his fires with ERA tiles. I've never seen anything like this before, so I'm just going to let y'all see the clip.
Здравствуйте, мои дорогие подписчики. Вот сейчас мы будем топить нашу печь. Кто чем ее топит, не знаю, а мы...
This man here has Contact 1 ERA tiles in his hand. If you shot that with like a rifle or something, it would explode.
И вот динамической защитой, пластидом от танков будем ее топить.
And he's just going to break it. He's like, never getting to the juice. The juego de ERA tile,
Просто
блин.
возьмем немножко взрывчатки. Прям чуть-чуть.
He's like, now we get out the explosive putty, блин. And we put it...
Nothing like putting a little explosive in your kitchen oven.
nothing like this taste of pyrodex on your eggs in the morning, блин.
Самый настоящий пластид.
Pyrodex cordite TNT. We just take a couple of little pieces of it, put it in there, блин.
Возьмем нашу.
They said it need kindling, blood, so I put some damn exploding stuff in it.
You see, what do we have? Yes.
Спички.
I have some crap in a wrapper, блин.
It's the nutrition facts.
Просто пластидом, взрывчаточкой топим печечку. Пойдемте сюда. Вот так вот.
So we move it in front of the oven, in front of the plastic explosives. And we light the match, блин. It takes a second. And then we drop it in there.
О, пожалуйста.
And блин, it burns quite nicely.
Ну чё, как? Нормально. Вот, сами видите, каков результат.
Does it blow up in a second? Tell me. Does it?
It doesn't.
Разгорится.
Oh, damn.
Вот вам
But still, I don't think anyone can deny that's kind of stupid, though, to start pulling apart ERA tiles made of plastic explosives and use that to light your fires. Like, I just feel something about that sounds unsafe. I don't know. Like,
can you imagine the fumes off of that? Like, I'm sure that a few or a little bit of the fumes probably does not go up the smokestack right there, and that's probably not good for your health.
man, dude, you're talking about Russians, man. They're career alcoholics. Like, what's worse, the unlimited stream of vodka in their blood or the little bit of chemicals coming off of that ERA tile? I don't know, man. I think both of them are going to end up killing the guy about the same time, like, to be entirely honest. But
they thought the vodka was bad, but I'm telling you, those C4 fumes that really get you.
Man, am I smelling toast? Oh no. But anyways, moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see that the Russians tried to save one of their artillery pieces after it got hit by an FPV drone. Here is the clip. When you see the whole thing's on fire and they're trying to move the net off of it. Oh, you see them here, they're desperately trying to fix this and stop the artillery piece from burning, but I think it's a little too late.
The cameraman is a slee stack.
Dude, cameraman back there, he's sounding like Quentin Tarantino when he writes himself into the part of the script that deals with feet. He's back there going, it's like, whoa, dude, get this man a CPAP machine, stat. What the hell? Did he just break his neck or something? And then look at this, dude. He went like a whole 90-degree flip in like half a second. It's like, bro. But anyways, that's the end of that clip. And moving on from that and into our next, we also got to see a Spetsnaz radio antenna. Now, this was interesting because many of y'all will wonder, what is the high-tech equipment that the Spetsnaz unit uses? And what kind of radar equipment do they have? This is it. And check it out. This is the standard antenna from the Arrakis radio station, which is used by the Special Forces unit Spetsnaz. And inside of this antenna, we have a good, sturdy tape measure. And there it is. Here, we can even measure something with it.
No joke.
This is in Unit of Spetsnaz. TSP produces it.
Special Forces tape measures.
Here's the antenna fully disassembled, removed case and handle. Here we have a piece of plumbing pipe, a piece of heat shrink tubing of various types. And what else is interesting? An ordinary Chinese TNC connector. Not very high quality soldering, but the way these connectors break off very easy, they are not very reliable, and this is the special device. 3 capacitors, a bit of copper wire, a good Chinese tape measure. You can measure something with it. A box. This is likely intended for scouts to use in calculations for detonation work on the front line.
Since when do you use a tape measure for that?
Oh, I think he's trying to explain it. The cost of a device is 3,000 rubles. It raises some questions. So remember, folks, you don't have to actually get top-tier equipment to be considered an operator anymore. You just have to get yourself a piece of measuring tape, a Baofeng radio, and a couple of dreams, and you too can be Spetsnaz. Because it's not that hard. It's not that tough, folks. Remember, it is all about getting the cheapest crap possible, and then selling off your good equipment to the West so you can get a little bit of money to line your pockets. But moving on from that, it's time for us to get on into the Russian casualty report, because it has been juicy. Oh!
Oh dear. These losses are hideous. 7 Bobcats, 42 artillery, 13 tanks. What the hell is going on? It's almost like the Russians are losing and begging for mercy.
Man, it's almost like them Russians about to give up. But beyond that, 1,240 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 2,700 personnel carriers, 56 supply trucks, 13 main battle tanks, 42 artillery pieces, 10 drones, 3 MLRSs, 1 aircraft, and 7 special equipment vehicles. Overall, it's been incredible as far as the day has gone. It appears that the Russians have taken incredibly high casualties, and the Ukrainian defensive lines are holding stronger than ever. And we're not just saying that just to say it. It actually looks like that from our Frontline reports. But moving on out of Russia's casualty reports, and the really high ones that they're starting to receive, it's now time for us to move on up into the northeastern area of Kharkiv. But before we get into the exact Frontline breakdown here, a lot of people have been talking about the United States, and Stoltenberg saying that all restrictions should be lifted on weapons supply to Ukraine, and they should be allowed to strike anywhere and everywhere, including inside of Russia. And a lot of people have been wondering, why doesn't America listen to this? What is going on here? And some people are thinking that America's scared, and some people are thinking that America's a little indecisive. But a lot of people have been thinking many different things. And Matthew, I want you to tell me, what are people thinking, and what are you thinking about this as well?
All right, so the poll question says, NATO's Stoltenberg says lift all restrictions on weapons supplied to Ukraine, and the question is, why won't the USA listen after all this time? 48% said USA is scared of Russian escalation, 24% said it'll happen soon, no worries, and 20% said USA is simply indecisive on Ukraine. And of course, we do not get political on this channel, but I will say this. NATO is supposed to be led by the United States. The United States puts the most money into NATO's defense, and they're supposed to be the sort of like unspoken leader of it. Now, the fact that Stoltenberg is coming out and having to tell the unspoken leader of it what to do, that's a little bit odd. I would say it's about time that we listen to all of our allies and actually lift the restrictions. If Britain can do it, then I don't know why the most powerful country on earth is also scared to do it as well. It makes no sense. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that it doesn't make a lot of sense that we're not doing that. I would have to say that it appears that America is scared of Russian escalation, and I think that this is something that we should not be scared of any longer. It already looks like the Russians are on the back foot, so why not allow Ukraine to put them on out of the war earlier rather than later and get this thing done with and move on into East Asia, because that is certainly where the next hot topic or the next big issue is going to end up. So why not quash one problem and then move on to the next instead of having to try and round out the one problem in Europe and then also deal with the same one happening on the other side of the world with Taiwan. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, in my opinion. But Matthew, also, before we move on, I understand we got a couple of questions.
So we do have a couple of questions. We got some. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. There's a big gap there. I was like, are you finished?
Man, I was sitting there, man, because I'm telling you what, I undersold myself on the coffee again tonight, man. But go ahead.
All right, so no espresso tonight, but cold brew's back, and the cold brew was not measured with the special-ass tape. But anyways, our first question of the night goes to SYI Tiger 907, who puts in a $50 donation. Very generous support, and also it's the return of a channel legend from Alaska. It's been a good minute, and also it's good to see you once again. They said, hi from Anchorage, Alaska, and how are you? And we're good.
And great to know you finally made it back to Anchorage. I mean, you were out there in the sticks for a long time, and I hope you've been doing well, and I hope you were able to finally get back to Anchorage and enjoy civilization, because Anchorage, Alaska is one of the few cities in the entirety of Alaska where there is any kind of civilization. And you know what's something that's really interesting about Anchorage is that the only reason it is this big nowadays, even this, I mean, which is considered very big for Alaska, would be considered small in most other places of the world. It's entirely because the Air Force moved up here in the 50s, and that's what led to the massive boom, which would create the modern-day Anchorage, Alaska. A really cool fun fact for all of y'all if y'all didn't know that. But nevertheless, welcome back, SYI Tiger, and it's great to know that you're still watching this channel and all the way up there in the middle of the frontier. I mean, that is really cool, and I cannot say enough. Welcome back. Thank you so much for being here with us, and it's great to know that you're back here live on air, and I hope you're getting to enjoy this all the way up there in Alaska. But still, thank you greatly for the support. Thank you for still being here with us, and it's just incredibly cool to know that folks like you are some of the few viewers that we have that truly live in some of the remaining frontiers around the world. And some of those people are the folks who live up here in Alaska, the folks who live in Greenland, the folks who live in Iceland. We even have some viewers who live in some other places around the world, like, for example, in rural Turkey, in the southeastern region, which is kind of a frontier of its own in a way, in loads of different other places. And it is crazy absolutely nuts to know that some of y'all are watching, like you, SYI Tiger. And thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping this thing to keep on running. And it's wonderful to know that you're still here with us, because I was asking Matthew maybe a few days ago. I was like, man, I wonder what happened to SYI Tiger. He used to be here often. And Matthew was like, yeah, I wonder. And now you're here again. It was like speaking of it was like saying Beetlejuice or something like that. You literally came back. But with that, thank you so much.
He was about to say, it's like speaking of the devil.
Yeah,
That's what you're about to say.
And then I was like, nah, it's not like speaking of the devil, because that's not a good thing. Not a good thing at all. Oh man, I'm telling you. But still, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next move. Welcome back once again, and it's great to have you here.
And also, real quick, by the way, while we're on SYI Tiger 907 Super Chat, they just threw in another 10, and huge shout out to you for the second support. They said, been back for a few months and getting nice. And also, SYI, I have not had the chance to see you in the live chat. I think you might have been lurking, actually, because I've been, always, scouring the live chat a ton, and I would be surprised if I missed you all this time, so I'd be shocked. But it's good to know that you've been back. And we love to know that everyone that's an old guard on the channel is still hanging around. It's very good to know. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, I didn't know that you've been back for a couple of months either. Maybe you've been back in Anchorage a couple of months. But if you've been in the chat for a couple of months, I am scouring this thing as well. And I know that I would recognize that tiger profile picture that you have. And I'd be like, hey, that's why Tiger's here. But I never saw it. If you have been here and you were in the live chat, I'm so sorry, because I completely missed that. But it is great to see you here tonight, and it's wonderful to know you're back. But if you want to clarify in the live chat, because maybe you meant you've been back in Anchorage a couple of months, or maybe you meant that you've been back in the chat for a couple of months, but nevertheless, it's still great to have you here either way. And I got to thank you so much for still being here with us, still really carrying on, trucking on along with all of us, and continuing to listen to news from around the world, not just in Ukraine, but in other far reaches of the world, like the Middle East and in East Asia as well. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that second super chat well. And thank you so much once again for being with this channel and helping us to keep this thing running still. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Ari Sawini, which is Kiwi Wife and Finn. He threw in a very generous $50 donation, and huge shout out to you, Ari, once again, for always supporting the channel and helping to keep this whole thing running. And Ari and Kiwi Wife and Finn said, LSA.
LSA! And thank you so much, Ari Sweeney. Kiwi Wife and Finn, we've got legends in here tonight. This is great. And I got to say, thank you so much once again, Ari Sweeney, for supporting this channel again and helping us to keep this thing rolling. Because Kiwi Wife and Finn make channel possible. No doubt about it. If it wasn't for you folks, we wouldn't be able to be here doing our thing right now. And so I got to thank you massively, the both of y'all, for the support and helping this channel to keep on rolling. And thank you for being old guards as well. Ari Sweeney is a name that everyone probably knows around this channel because y'all have been here forever, literally forever, probably before most other viewers ever came here. And we are so happy to still have y'all here and to be able to lay claim that y'all find y'all's home on this channel in the Lee Spring Army. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well, the best I can. And thank you greatly for, once again, being a big member of the Lee Spring Army. Also, really quickly, to use your moment, Ari Sweeney, your support, to address a live chat, I just saw someone, the cry of the Watchman, say, why are the media saying that Ukraine is losing the war? Well, because they're motivated by profits and people watching their show, and one of the best ways for people to watch their show is by fear. And so what they do is they drum up fear by telling everyone Ukraine's going to lose and it's all over, so that way you'll get on TV and watch about why Ukraine is losing and the war is over, so that way they can sell those sweet ad spots at higher prices to the folks who want the ad spots. That's the reason why they do that. Because anyone with any kind of common sense at this point would see that the Russians are doing incredibly poorly in this war. There is no doubt about that. The Russian armed forces are suffering in the Kharkiv area. They are making no advances near Avdiivka or Bakhmut, and that's not just me saying it out of bias. That's literally something you can see. Here's the past 24 hours in Kharkiv, and the Russians lost a small amount of ground to the east of Vovchansk, moving down into Bakhmut. Here's Bakhmut over the past 24 hours. The Russians made a minuscule advance in this area. Here's Avdiivka over the past 24 hours. Once again, tiny advances, not major breakthroughs like the mainstream news is saying. It's completely untrue. It's completely unfounded. And it's one thing that I have to say. is that I would stop watching mainstream news, and I'd also stop watching people who say things like they are facts without backing them up. Because those people are people who are there just to try and get you watching. They're not there to try and get you real news. We try and get y'all real news. And I will say that we try and be a little bit optimistic when we report the news. And sometimes we'll say that things are looking a little tough when things aren't really looking that great. That's something that we do on this channel. I'll admit that. But one thing that I will not do is flat out lie to y'all about something and make it sound like it's far worse so that we all get on and watch. People who do that, and it's not just mainstream media, it's also some YouTube channels as well, are incredibly desperate for views. They're trying to get more views to make more money. That's something that will never be focused on this channel. We are going to do what we want to do, which is report what's actually going on. And whether that brings in views, whether that brings in support to help us to be able to do this as a job, that is a whole other oyster of its own. But I want to make sure that the quality of the news that we put forward is as best as possible here, and that's why you're hearing that Ukraine is doing fairly well instead of doing terribly. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and I hope that does answer your question, because some people come in here and they always say something like that. They always say, well, the mainstream media isn't saying what you're saying, or they're not even saying anything about what you're talking about. And that's also because they suck. I mean, I don't know how in the world they can end up coming up with such a poor quality product. They have hundreds of staff, hundreds of employees. They make hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in some instances per year, and yet they can't even come up with the kind of quality and effort that Matthew and me can do on this channel, making almost nothing compared to a mainstream news organization and only having the two of us to work with. We are able to put out a much more high quality product, and I will attest that by telling you to go back to the stream that we ran. It's the highest viewed stream we ever made, which was when Iran attacked Israel with the massive drone and rocket attack, and watch that news, because we covered that live from beginning to end. We covered it from when the first Iranian rocket was fired to when the last one got shot down over Israel. The entire thing happened live. And go and look at that. And go and look at the amount of information we had, the amount of proof for the information we had, and also notice that we said nothing on that stream that could not be corroborated by an official government statement from any of the governments involved, or that did not have video or picture evidence behind it. That is the kind of effort, that is the kind of quality that we try and put into the show, because we don't just say things like mainstream media does or other YouTube channels do and just go, trust me, bro. We say things with facts to back it up, or video and picture evidence to prove what we're claiming. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and I hope that you find this channel to be a good place to get news, because we put our heart and soul into this news here on this channel, and I hope that it is up to snuff for you. And so with that, thank you so much once again for sponsoring, indirectly sponsoring that live chat, Ari Sweeney, but I feel like it was a good one to put out. And so with that, thank you so much once again. We are on to the final question of the segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the Vovchansk front.
All right, and this one is going to go to Robert Harrington, who's yet another channel legend, and he threw in a $50 donation. Huge shout out to Robert for always supporting the channel, just like Ari and also SYI Tiger as well. And Robert said, have a great Memorial Day weekend. And it is Memorial Day weekend. I almost forgot. I said, remember those who paid the ultimate sacrifice. He put in the salute and the American flag and said, thanks, Andrew and Matt, for what you do with the channel and LSA.
And thank you so much for the support, and thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. Robert Harrington, that is a name that will forever live in the old guard right there. You've been around for ages, and I hope that you have a great Memorial Day as well, because this weekend is Memorial Day weekend for everyone here in the United States. Memorial Day is actually the holiday, and this is something that gets mixed up nowadays, because a lot of people treat Veterans Day like Memorial Day, and Memorial Day like Veterans Day should be treated. Memorial Day is to remember all of the soldiers who died. Veterans Day is more so to celebrate the veterans of the country who were still alive. So there's well, kind of, sort of. I mean, Veterans Day kind of covers the veterans who were still alive, and then some of those who ended up dying in the service, like and that's even tough to go with that either, because really that's entirely Memorial Day. Memorial Day is the holiday that is supposed to celebrate or really memorialize a day to remember all of the soldiers who have died in service of the nation, defending our liberty, and also conducting America's actions around the world. That's really what Memorial Day is about. And a lot of people always get that mixed up. Memorial Day is kind of supposed to be the more solemn day of the two. Veterans Day is supposed to be a bit of a celebration of the veterans in thanking them for their service and all that. While Memorial Day is more so to remember all of those who have died in defense of the nation and honor their memory. So I hope that you have a great Memorial Day weekend as well. It's not really like that anymore. And huge thanks to SYI Tiger, by the way, for the massive support right there. But Memorial Day isn't really celebrated like that anymore. It's more of like a barbecue weekend, which I guess, is a great way to celebrate all the veterans who lay down their lives, because I'm sure that a lot of them would have loved to have known that people were using that to have a good time and celebrate and really get to live in the amazing republic that some of those folks laid down their lives to ensure would exist. And so with that, thank you so much once again for wishing us a great Memorial Day weekend, Robert Harrington, and that is absolutely incredible of you that you would do that. And also, thank you so much to you for enjoying what we do on the channel, Robert, because it isn't something that we do because we have some kind of an objective. Well, and when I say that sounded so vague, I need to clarify that we don't get on this channel going, we have to become famous or we have to be viral. We don't do any of that running this channel. We just do it because we love doing it, and we love covering the news for all of y'all. And whether we have big nights, big live stream viewership nights, or little ones, and tonight is actually a really big one. There's been 7.5 thousand people on the peak, which would by most metrics be quite large. It does not matter to us. What matters is that we get to share the news with all of y'all, and folks like you, Robert Harrington, and that is something that makes me incredibly happy, is to see familiar faces in the live chat, so that way I know I'm talking to a familiar crowd that is here to listen to the news delivered from us. And so I got to thank you so much, Robert Harrington, not really more so because of the news that we put out or the quality that you think it is, but I got to thank you so much for putting in the effort to stick through with us and choose Matthew and me to be your primary source of news, not just from Ukraine, but from around the world whenever the moment arises. And so with that, thank you.
Also, I got a question. By the way, real quick before we move on. For all the veterans in the chat, I see some people, it's always a debate every single time Memorial Day rolls around. And I remember specifically an Army major that I knew that hated being thanked on Memorial Day. I don't know why. I've never served, so I don't understand it. But how many veterans in the chat like being told thank you for your service on Memorial Day, and also how many don't? Because I'm just curious, because it seems to be quite a decent amount of veterans that are like, thanks but no thanks when it comes to the support and the thanks. And I'm just curious. Put in the live chat what y'all think, because I'd like to see the perspectives here.
And also another thing, I will say this. I'm not really a big fan of saying thank you for your service to veterans or currently serving, because to be quite honest, it sounds a little patronizing. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like just like a let me think of another patronizing statement. Kind of like back the blue. It's like, I don't know. It kind of comes off patronizing to me. Like most veterans I've talked to, I never thank them for their service. I mean, it's just kind of understood that you thank them for their service because they're soldiers of the Republic. They've defended the nation. So, you don't really have to go and give the token, oh, thank you for your service. I always just talk to them like folks, and end up asking them, was the food good? What was the worst day that you ever had? What did it ever rain so bad that, you thought you were going to drown in the rain or something like that? I usually just ask questions like that. And then at the end say, oh man, it was nice talking to you. Really cool to hear about someone's service and all that stuff. So usually I never say thank you for your service because I don't know. I've always kind of heard a little bit that it's patronizing. And so then I ended up taking up the mindset, it must be patronizing, must not be, some folks like to hear. And so instead I'll just talk to them like anyone else. And at the end of the day, a lot of folks in the military who aren't trying to really, use it as, well, that's kind of a weird way to put it. I won't put it that way. But a lot of folks in the military just kind of look at it as a job. I mean, I got a lot of friends right now who are in the military. I got friends who are in the Space Force, friends who are in the Marines, friends who are in the Army, and pretty much all of them at the end of the day say it's just kind of a job. Some of them hate it, some of them kind of like it. I've never seen anyone really love it yet, but a lot of people just look at it as a job, and then they kind of feel it's patronizing and say thank you for your service. So that's another thing. On top of that, do y'all even like to hear a thank you for your service at all? I'm interested in that. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, but thank you so much once again for the support, Robert Harrington, and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope I was able to address your super chat incredibly well, and thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running and helping us to keep it rolling. And so with that, we are now going to be moving on into the area of Vovchansk and the offensives that have been going on in this area. And it is something very interesting to see that no frontline advances have been made. I've covered this a lot tonight. We've touched on this so many times, but it's time for us to actually move into this area. And also, let's see here. I'm seeing a lot of people say no. Let's see. No. Yes.
I'm seeing mainly a lot of people saying, like, specifically Memorial Day. Like, I typically, like, everyone says thank you for your service on Veterans Day. I know that for a fact. But on Memorial Day, there's still people that will say, like, to the living veterans, because, you know, veterans like to go pay their respects on Memorial Day. They'll say thank you for your service. And it seems like people especially don't like it then because of, you know, you're supposed to honor the fallen veterans, not the ones that are still living.
And also another thing, I'm seeing let's see. I'm seeing a lot of mixed comments. I'm not going to lie in the chat, because some people are like, "Yeah, I find it patronizing." Some other people are like, "Oh no, I actually like it. I appreciate it." So I guess it just kind of depends on from folks to folks. So you know, it's just kind of like everything else. It really depends on the person whether they like hearing it or not. But you know what? I'll say thank you for your service just because it's nice. I mean, what could it hurt? It's a polite thing to say. It's nice. I've heard in the past that, and I haven't heard this from like one or two people. I've heard it from at least 4 folks that I knew that were veterans, folks that had served in Vietnam. Well, maybe that was it. Maybe they served in Vietnam, so they didn't really like it because it did seem kind of patronizing. But nevertheless, they kind of said that it was a little bit of a patronizing thing to say. And I guess that's because some of them ended up having to strip off their uniforms before they even got off the plane, because folks are going to spit on them in the airport, which was something that they said did happen. So, you know, I'm gonna say it because what the hell could it hurt? It's polite, it's nice, and why not be nice? But anyways, moving on from that and into the area of Vovchansk, we were able to see that over the past 24 hours, Russian lines have actually decreased in size. It is an incredibly small decrease. It really isn't anything worth noting. To be quite honest, the front line has been completely unmoved. And also, Matthew, there we go. Jay Bagwell said, there we go. Jay Bagwell said it. He said he didn't like it either. So I don't know. Like, I'm seeing.
He said he said, I love this. He said it was my pleasure, like Chick-fil-A. I like that.
It kind of does feel like that. Now I'm mixed. Now I don't know if I should say it or not, because I'm still seeing a mixed crowd in the live chat. So
you know, our Army instructor in high school in TRTC absolutely hated it. Like he wouldn't necessarily go off or anything like that, but you could tell like he was on the verge of like wanting to like lash out over it. And I was like, damn, like he does.
It kind of made him look like he was
that.
going to squirm, you know, when people would say it to him.
Yeah, he was always like really like standoffish about that, and like he had to also temper a bit too. So it's like, you know, I was wondering if he was always going to kind of go off on some people for saying it, but you know, I've seen actually a decent amount of people not take too kindly to that, especially on certain days like Memorial Day.
Yeah. Let's see here, and I'm seeing a lot of people. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm just seeing a lot of mixed things in the chat about that from veterans. Some are like, yeah, I think it's nice. I mean, you know, it's just nice to know people care. But honestly, now, like, I'm looking in the live chat again, second look, a lot of people are not a big fan of thank you for your service, like veterans in particular. Like, nah, I don't like it. You know what? I'm going to stick with my original notion that I'm not going to say it because, like, you know, because a lot of people apparently just don't like it. I mean, they got. I would suppose they got great reason for it, and it does sound a little patronizing because it's like, you know, and then on top of that, another person put it to me like this: I went into the military for college benefits. I didn't go into it for like service to the nation or anything. So it seems kind of weird to say thank you for your service because I didn't do it for them. I didn't do it for you. I did it for me so that way I could get to college. And it's like, well, it's a fair point as well. But anyways, with that, I hope that does kind of cover that the best we can. We're going to leave that one alone, though, and just let the live chat continue on that one and see where it goes. But moving on from that, over the past 24 hours, no advances have been made by the Russians. Oleksandr Syrskyi did say 48 hours ago that the Russians are completely bogged down in this area and will not be advancing any further due to severe Ukrainian defensive fire, and not only that, unadvantageous terrain, leaving the Russians at a severe disadvantage. From what we understand, the Russian Federation will not be advancing any farther in this area, and if they do, it's going to take an incredibly long amount of time, and the advances will be incredibly small in their progress. This means that this offensive is dead dead on arrival. It will not be advancing any further. The original offensive objective of trying to take the city of Kharkiv will never be realized, and from what we know, this will most likely mean that the Russians will move on to other offensive fronts. They may even completely withdraw from this one because it's going so poorly and there's going to be no progress to be had here. The only thing that will come out of it is further losses, increased amounts of attrition on the Russian military, which is something that they could simply no longer afford in unnecessary offensive objectives like these. But moving on from that and into the little bit of news that we got from this area, we did get to see that according to the British Ministry of Defense, we got a lot of force composition news about what is up in this area today. Over the past week, Russia has deployed units from the Russian MOD's Africa Corps alongside regular Russian forces and Storm Z units during their offensive in Vovchansk. Russia MOD's Africa Corps, which emerged in December 2023, consists of more than 2,000 regular soldiers and officers, so it's close to a brigade-sized unit, as well as experienced mercenaries, many of whom previously served in the Wagner Group. Africa Corps' detachments have highly likely previously been deployed to Syria, Libya, Burkina Faso, and Central Africa. The Russian Ministry of Defense also certainly redeployed detachments from the Africa Corps to the Ukrainian border during April 2024 in preparation for this offensive. It is highly likely that Russia is reinforcing its war on Ukraine with resources previously assigned to Africa. And the fact that they're moving African Corps forces into the area of Ukraine, and specifically into this offensive, is giving us an idea that Russian troop forces are completely stretched at this point, and there's nothing else to give. That is very clear at this moment. And not only that, the Russians are also, according to the British Ministry of Defense Intelligence, starting to remove resources from Africa, which is always really a big playground for the Russians, where they try and go down there and try and run profitable enterprises, pretty much dark enterprises, if you want to call them that, or they try and mess with French control in the region, considering that the French have a large amount of control in Western Central Africa. It appears that they're starting to have to withdraw from those kinds of hopes and aspirations to just try and keep the war in Ukraine going. So going off of this, the offensive in Vovchansk is already off to a bad start, and once again, the troop quality is incredibly poor, much like we were seeing. But moving on from that and into our next bit, we also get to see that the Ukrainians are blowing up some bridges, apparently as a preemptive measure in the region, just in case the Russians do advance. They will already have taken out the bridges. From what we assume, though, the Russians are not advancing anytime soon in this area based off of battlefield reports, frontline changes, and not only that, statements from Alexander Sursky. We would assume that this front line is going to be remaining incredibly solid, but nevertheless, they are going to blow up the bridges just as a precaution. And we can see them laying out the landmines here as well as bags of explosives. And now they're going to get ready to lay down the det cord and then get ready to blow the bridge. And we now see them getting ready to blow the bridge, and we can see that right there, and the bridge is now gone. I wonder how fun it is to be in a detonations unit like this. We're really in the engineers.
Oh, it's got to be fun. If you get to blow it up, it's got to be good.
Yeah, it's got to be pretty fun. And we can see them. Oh, dude, it's a Land Rover Defender. Oh, my lord. I love these.
Oh,
I love them.
That's so nice, man. Those would be so expensive here in the United States as well. They just like drive around the battlefield like whatever.
Yeah, the British actually gave them a lot of these. Wait a minute, hang on. I think it's a Land Rover Wolf or something. Let me check. Land Rover Defender. 110. Yeah, it's 110, isn't it? No? What the hell is this? I think it is a Land Rover Wolf. Yeah, it's the Land Rover Wolf. I'll show it on screen really quickly because this was like the British version of the Humvee, but that's what the Land Rover Wolf looks like.
I like those a lot. That's such a nice vehicle. If I could have one of those for like my own like personal vehicle, I would like drive that around everywhere.
Oh, I love these. If someone could ever find us one of these, like this is a big ask, folks, but if anyone ever had one of these and just wanted to donate it to us for some reason, I would be more than happy to take it.
That's like asking someone to give you $100,000 in America or something.
I know. That's why I was like, it's a big ask, folks. I'm like, you don't have to follow through with that at all. But I love these things. I really do. I think they're one of the coolest looking cars, the coolest looking utility vehicles out there. This one, Not so much. I don't really like him in that desert color, and I also don't like the grill on this one and the tires. I don't really like anything about this one. But this one, oh, dude, it looks great. I mean, these things look incredible. Truly. I mean, some of the best. Some of the best. But anyways, with that, let me get back to the clip now that we got to oogle over the Land Rover Wolf. Or really, it's a Defender. And we see this guy now climbing into the back. It's a little cramped back there, but, you know, it's not a Humvee or anything. And we see them closing the back door, and that's the end of the clip. But really cool to see.
Sick outro, too. Man, they went all out.
Man, they went and got the best animator for that. But anyways, moving on from that and on into our next clip, in the Vovchansk area, we were also able to see that the Ukrainians were able to get a long-range javelin hit today near the area. But anyways, when you see them lining up the javelin, once again, huge shout out to Troy, Alabama for making this possible. And there goes the missile. Comes right down onto the Russians' heads here in a moment. And Blicky! Ooh, they got him. But nice to see. They were able to hit that tank at such a range. Once again, thanks to the amazing folks down in Troy, Alabama who produced the CLUs that make the javelin possible. Moving on from that bit of news in Vovchansk and moving on further down the line and into the area of Kremenna, we were able to see that frontline action in this area was practically non-existent. Over the past 24 hours, we've seen that Russian forces have attempted advances on the Torske and Avdiivka and have not been able to succeed at either offensives, taking high losses and ending up having to withdraw from the field at the end of the day. Not only that, but in the area around Terny to China-Taiwan, somewhere in this area, we were able to see that the Ukrainians were able to capture a completely intact, slightly damaged T-90M breakthrough, the second of its kind to be captured in intact condition over the course of the war. The first of its kind was actually immediately sent to the United States and was sent to proving grounds to be able to see what makes this tank tick, what kind of special features may it have, and what kind of weaknesses may be inherent in the design. We now see them loading the T-90M onto a trailer to move it on, you know, for... Oh, dang, dude, did you see that? It lifted up the semi. You can look at that. That tank came down, burp, and that truck actually had been lifted.
They did that expertly as well. That's one of the most dangerous parts is like trying to load those tanks onto trailers.
Yeah, and look at this. It looks like that T-90M was abandoned near to a T-72B3. It looks like the engine on that T-72B3 is still on because we can see the exhaust right there. We now see them loading up the other tank as well. The T-72B3, I believe that was stuck in the bog. And we see them moving that tank up as well. And now they have both of them on the trailer. And they're getting ready for them to move. But man, a T-90M. What a catch. I mean, T-90Ms have proven to not be that good in the war. They appear to be about as good as the T-72B3. But nevertheless, it is nice to see they were able to capture one of these. And oh, dang, they're having to rip that thing off the trailer.
Oh, they snatched it off.
But it's still nice for them to have one because it allows the Ukrainians to once again dissect this thing and figure out what else they can learn from the T-90M, although the United States probably learned everything possible and then relayed that information back to Ukraine. And we see them showing the inside of the T-90M, and we can also see a picture, well, several pictures taken of its condition. And that's the end of the clip, but really cool to see. It's wonderful to know they're out there doing this kind of work and doing well. I mean, doing incredibly well. But moving on from that and down into Torsky, we also get to see a Ukrainian unit firing a 120mm heavy mortar. And we see right here...
yes, bliat.
He's got that
monster. A beer? He's got that tall boy.
Ooh, dang.
Shoot, damn!
And he's still got a sip.
He must be a little bit soused.
Man, he must be experienced. But moving on from that and out of the area, we also got to see near Lysychansk that the Russians are putting drone stations on buses.
Жидкость победы.
That laugh, though.
Жидкость.
Man, you know what he sounds like? Do you know what he sounds like, man? He sounds like a goblin. He said, "Look, we have energy drink."
Адреналин. Жидкость победы. Так, кто у нас тут? Ага. Такие типы ездят везде.
What the hell?
И
A
вечно
mobile
мощь.
gaming bus?
Dude, they play in Minecraft up in here.
Армия, красавцы вообще. Сделали автобусов, наделали, они
Who are these,
катаются
though? Ukrainians?
по всей
No,
линии
these are
фронта.
Russians.
What the
Сами
hell?
летают, тут же останавливаются в полях. Генератор, зарядка
So you're
батареи.
telling
всё
me
придумано.
that they got a bus, they put computers in them on this like makeshift like shed like contraption in front of them. They brought in a case of monsters and said, "Here you go."
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, damn.
The Russians are desperate right now, Matthew, for anything that might give them an upper hand advantage. Putting everyone on a bus means that these guys are mobile now, so they can't be triangulated and then hit in a single area. So, you know, the Russians are trying desperately.
Попробуй вычислить этот автобус.
Только если сзади УАЗик не ездит.
А УАЗик все равно наш, так что нормально всё.
Сопровождение.
Белый. Ну, это охрана, сопровождение, все как положено.
The Russians, they yearn for the buses. But moving on from that and into the next clip, down in the area of Bakhmut, where not really a lot of frontline advances were seen today, I'll show you all what we saw. It appears that the Russians have attempted to move back into Klishkivka, and it appears they were able to take the central area of the town today. But to be quite honest, that is an incredibly small advance for the amount of forces and casualties that have been taken in this area over a single day. But moving on from that and into our clip, we were able to see that a Russian tank got hit in the area once again near Chasiv Yar. Baboosh. That thing be smoky. Oh, and that thing be toasty. And Mosquito Bite said, the enforcer news is better than corporate news for the same reason a backyard barbecue burger is better than a fast food burger. But if we blow up and go viral one day and we become mainstream, does that mean we're not good anymore? Like, I'm wondering, you know? Like, I think about that sometimes.
That's why I call it lamestream, because it's okay to go mainstream. You just don't want to turn lame.
Dude, that's one thing we'll have to make sure is if we ever run, if we ever turn out being huge and this becomes a major news channel, we're going to have to make sure that it stays real on this channel. It's not going to be, hello, everyone, welcome, hurricane will kill you all, get on air. Like, we're not going to have people doing that. It will still be real like we are here on air right now. And we can see them here showing the outskirts of Chasiv Yar where these Russians are getting schmacked. And with that, that's the end of the clip right there. But with that, it's now time for us to move on into our next one, where we're also able to see near Zaitsev that a Russian hideout got vaporized by an FPV drone. We see all the Russians going into the hideout, and when you see that the hideout's about to go. But the bush... dead in the window. Oh my god! Oh, my god! Dude, it went...
Oh.
Look at this. It was like, oh, it went in. And then... shit. Oh my god. They vaporized and they leveled the building. Oh my gosh!
Oh.
Oh my lord. It's like a
Damn,
3,000
man. How
pound
did-
bomb went off.
It's like that building must have been made of like just straight up like powdered brick. It's like, how did all that powder go up that high?
Oh my gosh, dude. That was crazy. Look at this. Look at this. Like, it's like, oh, it blew up. It's like, oh my god. Dude, it literally turned into atoms. Like, it turned into smoke. But that is crazy. They got it. They got him, I think, for sure. But moving on out of the Bakhmut area and down into Avdiivka, we also got to see near Otradine an M1A1 sporting some of the largest amounts of armor mods I've ever seen. Like, it has the Tusk armor, it has the Contact 1 ERA, and then it has a cope cage that pretty much is form-fitting to the turret. Never seen anything like this before on an Abrams. The Abrams is getting mad maxed out there in Ukraine. I don't really know what to make of this. I don't know if I like it or hate it. But it appears the Ukrainians are getting comfortable with the Abrams these days. Moving on from that and down into our next clip, we also got to see that an ammo warehouse got hit. There's the ammo warehouse. Just in case. Oh, and there it goes.
Oh, that ammo warehouse was very conspicuously placed right there on the side of a road in the middle of nowhere where nobody would find it.
Man, boy, how the hell do the Ukrainians just keep guessing what our ammo is? It's just like, they have no clue where, boy. And with that, I see in the clip right there, and Matthew, I think there is a specific person in the live chat who might be a Chinese bot. I don't know for sure, and keep an eye on them. They said the one China policy was agreed on by America since the formation of Taiwan. What do you mean by that, Rick? It's because if you mean we agreed that Communist China was the ruler of all China, how the hell would that make sense? Because the Republic of China, which is Taiwan, has existed longer than the commies ever have. So how in the world would that make sense? If that is what you're saying, explain that to me. If that's not what you're saying, please clarify that and I'll be sorry. But nevertheless, moving on from that and into our next bit of news, we were also able to see that the Ukrainians are starting to use them incendiary rounds and the heavy machine guns. Check this out.
And no hearing protection. This guy's a boss. I mean, I think he's got a little earplug in his ears right there. I can't tell though.
My man's deaf. Dude, he sat there and put his finger
I can't hear anything.
He's like,
I can't hear.
He's like, I can't hear shit. Look at it.
Man, he turned around to everybody to shh. He's like, wait, why can't I hear anything? Everybody be quiet. I can't hear. He's like, hold it down. He's like, no, that's the tinnitus.
Oh, man. And also, John, you said Enforcer brush up on history. Buddy, do you know what one of my main subjects was in history in college? China. Like, I took an entire 2 semesters on China. Like I would know. But anyways, moving on from that, we also got to see that a 9K33 OSA got deleted. And so here's the clip.
We got a macho man in the chat, by the way. He got so macho that he had to go. He's going to start going macho on the audience. He said, listen, man, my point is half of you children are ready for war because you'll get smoked. We're all going to get smoked because you're staying on YouTube all day. I said, you must eat nails for breakfast, buddy. Sound like a tough guy, yeah? Alpha male? What color is your Bugatti?
What color is your Bugatti? But listen, if you want to say something like that, why in the world are you saying it over the internet? Like really, like you're sitting there.
Really, you're on YouTube, buddy.
Yeah, you're on YouTube. You're talking crap on YouTube. I mean, honestly, that's more cringe than the people who just are hanging out. Like, what the hell's wrong with you? Like, it's like, what are you, stupid?
Man, I listen. I hate it when people come on and say, "Oh, nobody really knows what the real man's about." It's like, dude, you don't know who any of these people are there on this stream right now. We could literally have freaking bodybuilders in the chat, and you wouldn't even know who they were. It's
Man,
like,
I mean,
it's like he's the real man, you know.
Man, I mean, I don't know. There might be some people from like I can't listen. I cannot confirm nor deny that the mafia exists, but there might be some people watching from there. You know, like you never know. But anyways, moving on from that, we also got to see that some S400s were destroyed as well. Oh, we're going to be muting that, but we can see the S400s active here.
He's a macho man.
And also, Daniel Miller, you got that right. The Republic of China was founded in 1912 when the Qing dynasty collapsed, and the People's Republic of China was founded in 1949. Before that, they were just known as the Commie Chinese. Like, oh my God, dude! Wait, I looked away from the screen for like 3 seconds and missed the sand battery getting vaporized. Look at this.
Damn.
Oh my gosh! And they even put the troll face over it. Look at that. They obliterated this thing. And thank you, Deacon.
Crazy.
But let's see. Dude, they are throwing
What the hell is that?
memes.
Look at that. Spasm attack by that skeleton. Man, that's how I feel like when I haven't eaten really good. I feel like that skeleton right there with having a spasm attack.
Dude, that's what I feel like. That meme down here, that's what I feel like when I get into the shower and the water's way too hot. That's what I feel like right there.
Oh, I could get so dark with that meme, but I'm not going to go there. Sorry.
It's okay. Don't be sorry. Like, it's like, you really hit me out
I
of
just went
left field
silent
with
after
that
I
one.
said
I was
that.
like,
I was like, okay, just let it go. Just let it go.
dude, what is that? Chocolate. Chocolate.
Man, they're putting in the taunts. Man, what the hell is that emoji doing? What the hell?
Man, wait, what is it doing?
That emoji's wilding right there.
Hang on, let's watch it again.
Huh.
Huh. Yeah, that's a little weird.
Man.
Oh no. Oh man, that's how I treat my glizzies. But anyways, moving on from that and on into our next clip behind the lines, we also got to see a massive strike occurring on Russian positions. Check it out. Sounds like a nice little explosion out there. Ooh. Well, that's the end of that clip. But hey, nice to hear it. Nice to see it. Moving on from that into the area of Mikilsky, we also got to see that a turtle tank got blown up. They're not invincible. Alright, we can hear Radio Moskva in the background. It's Gabarit Moskva. But we can see the turtle tank blew up. Like a normal tank. It looks like the turtle armor modifications don't do much for it.
Oh my gosh. You know how we had that segment earlier about Kim Jong-un staring at Putin like he was a good snack?
Uh-huh.
I just saw someone on Twitter just sent me a whole meme that was literally created on the spot of that photo of Kim Jong-un eyeballing Putin and he turned into a hamburger.
No way. No way. Wait, like on the spot. Like they did it immediately.
It's Bearded Atheist. He's in the live chat, by the way. He sent it to us on Twitter and it's under our likes tab. You can show it to him in a second.
Hold up. Let me go let me go line that up. Because I gotta go. Hold up. No freaking way! He did that so quick! Like, that is really impressive. Okay, we're gonna have to show that in a little bit. But anyways, moving on from that into our next clip near Mikilsky, we also got to see another Russian tank exploding near Volodar. Here it is. Chad music in the background. All of you weenie hot juniors would bow to me in real life. The world shivers when a nice guy loses his cool. I need to see someone else like that in the live chat stat. Like, if you get him in here, get him in here. But let's see. We can see the tank brewing. I mean, that thing is cooking, y'all. It's cooking better than Gordon Ramsay. It's cooking better than Marco Pierre White with some Norris stockpot. This thing is cooking. But with that, we're now moving on from that little bit of news in the area of Mikilsky and on down into the area of Avdiivka, where we got to see a Strela at work. This is a Ukrainian Strela, by the way. Okay, we're going to be using that, but there's the Strela. It's getting ready to fire. And, oh, it looks like they're still lining it up a little bit. And there goes the Strela. Strela! Boosh! And there we go. Dead on the nail. Got it. Get him! And with that, that's the end of that clip. But nice to see. Moving on.
People want that burger meme really bad, by the way.
We're going to show it to them right now. Like, it's good enough. All right, so let's see here. Let me let it restart. Come on, patience. Patience. Oh, wait. No. Okay. Here we go. Bearded Atheist. Huge shout out to Bearded Atheist because he made the meme dead on the spot. But here we go. So we see Kim Jong-un eyeballing him. He turns into a hamburger.
He's like wimpy.
Oh, dude, that was
I'll gladly pay you a week from Tuesday for a Putin hamburger today.
Dude, I cannot believe. Huge credit to Bearded Atheist for making this so quick. I mean, he even made the eyes move on Kim Jong-un and the mouth and everything, dude. Like, that is a lot of effort to put it in such a small amount of time. Really impressive stuff. Huge shout out to you for doing that. That is actually pretty funny that you did it on the spot. But with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you once again to Bearded Atheist for being a legend. And with that, we're now moving on out of the area of the Southern Front, and we're now going to be moving on up into Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 821 of the war. And so, without further ado, here is the speech. And it looks like he's got a new background.
Oh, I like it.
I like that a lot. I think that's really nice. Must be a different part of the office. But with that, let me remove that English audio track. My dear Ukrainians. And without further ado, here is the speech.
Дорогі українці, українки, сьогодні довгий день. Вранці Харків був на місці влучання російських ракет по одному з найбільших українських видавничих комплексів. Це просто жахливо. Люди загинули. Мої співчуття рідним та близьким. Багато було поранених, а ще спалені ударом книжки, знищене обладнання. Лише через знищення однієї цієї типографії втрачено близько третини щорічного друку книжок в країні. Російський терор постійно доводить, що їхня ціль – повна руйнація України і усього життя тут, на нашій землі, усього, що дозволяє людям бути людьми. Зробимо все, щоб захистити нашу державу і щоб російське зло відповідало за скоєне. Сьогодні Міністерство економіки України, регіональна влада Харківщини отримали всі необхідні доручення, щоб допомогти відновити роботу поліграфії у Харкові. Треба буде і загалом підтримати галузь і на державному рівні. І, будь ласка, обов'язково, якщо маєте таку можливість, самі теж підтримуйте наших українських книговидавців, українських авторів. Це важливо. Безперечно, буде терористам і наша відповідь на цей удар. Провів в Харкові безпекову нараду, були доповіді військових, керівників спеціальних служб, обласної і міської влад. Зараз нашим воїнам вдалося взяти під бойовий контроль територію прикордоння, куди зайшли російські окупанти. Я дякую кожному підрозділу, який забезпечує необхідні результати у знищенні окупанта. Обговорили сьогодні також подальші наші завдання з урахуванням інформації від розвідок. Путін не просто хоче зірвати саміт миру. І багато чого намагається для цього зробити. Він ще й боїться того, що може дати саміт. Світ здатен примусити Росію до миру і до дотримання норм міжнародної безпеки. Росії нічого протиставити світовій більшості, попри всю путінську брехню. Він залежить від оточення в широкому сенсі цього слова, від міжнародного оточення теж. Ніхто в світі не зацікавлений у цій війні, крім самого агресора. І кожен це насправді розуміє. Саміт миру – це такий формат, який не дозволить Путіну більше брехати. А без брехні він абсолютно ніхто. Я дякую усім в світі, хто допомагає нам з організацією саміту та проявляє своє лідерство, щоб справжній мир став ближче. Сьогодні говорив з президентом Кот-д'Івуару, запросив на саміт миру, вдячний за готовність брати участь. Сьогодні ж зустрівся з маршалком Сенату Польщі, подякував за підтримку, розповів про ситуацію в Україні і, звичайно, ми обговорили нашу підготовку до саміту. Дякую кожному і кожній, хто підтримує Україну та реальний, чесний мир. Дякую усім, хто б'ється та працює заради нашої держави і людей. Слава Україні!
And Героям слава! And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. And with that, we are going to be moving on into the second bit of this stream, where we get to talk to each and every one of y'all. And I gotta say that this is a very fun part of the stream, because we get to talk about literally anything and everything. We get to talk to y'all about where y'all from, what y'all want to talk about, the war, what's going on in East Asia, what's going on in the Middle East, what's going on with y'all, anything and everything. But nevertheless, Matthew, what do we have?
All right, so moving into our final question segment of the night here. Let's see here. Let me get rid of this guy with a Russian flag in his name. Not good for him. But anyways, moving on to our last poll here. It says, China warns the USA to end visits to Taiwan and adhere to the one China policy or get punished. And what are your thoughts? 79% said the USA should intentionally disobey, while 11% said it really doesn't matter, and 5% said the USA should lay low for now. And in my opinion, here's my opinion on the take. I would say that the USA should intentionally send someone to Taiwan right now and call the bluff, because China is running thy mouth a little bit too much, considering how dependent they are on us and how dependent we are on them. They are clearly bluffing. Also, this whole one China policy thing right here, that basically means that Taiwan is China's, which is never going to happen. At least it shouldn't happen under the USA's watch. And also the statements about getting punished, that's just a bunch of Chinese propaganda. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, in my opinion, we should not adhere to the one China policy. And also, a lot of people are saying, well, didn't so-and-so back in the day do this and that, which pretty much disavow Taiwan from existing? No. And also, things change over time. Because originally, when the commies took over, we ended up backing Taiwan through and through. That's why they have a lot of older Cold War era U.S. equipment, is because we backed them up and supported them because we were anti-communist just over across the board. It didn't matter whether we could end up teaming up with those commies later. They were commies, so there was no teaming up with them. And so we ended up supporting Taiwan heavily and supporting their sovereignty and independence. Later on down the road, Nixon, and also, by the way, we're not delving into politics here. I'm just going to lay out the groundwork to give you all the kind of time frame that we're talking about here. Nixon went to China, and everyone knows Nixon went to China. Like I literally just said, only, like, the whole thing, only Nixon can go to China. I literally just said it. But anyways, Nixon went to China, and he ended up talking to, I believe it was actually Mao Zedong, who was still in charge of China at the time. They teamed up against the Russians, teamed up against the Soviet Union, because the Chinese did not like the Soviet Union at the time. And because of that, Nixon started to bend a little bit on U.S. foreign policy about the sovereignty of Taiwan. Although we still ended up in a treaty with them, defensive pact with them then, and then we renewed it right when that one expired, I believe in 1975. So we never really abandoned Taiwan. And also, according to what I was able to find really quickly, just to make sure I was thinking of this correctly just a while ago when I was saying it, and it was correct, the United States recognizes the one China position of both sides of the Taiwan Strait. U.S. policy has not recognized the People's Republic of China's sovereignty over Taiwan, meaning that we do not recognize China having a claim to the island of Taiwan or anything on it. However, we also do not recognize Taiwan as a sovereign nation. So we've kind of sat there and really canceled out everything. We do not say that China owns Taiwan. We actually say that they do not own Taiwan. But at the same time, we also say that Taiwan is not a real country. So we've kind of ended up putting the whole entire thing into a gray zone where you could really do whatever you want and go either direction that you want at the moment. You could say China has no claims to Taiwan because Taiwan is a legitimate sovereign nation that we now recognize. This is only a matter of changing our status of recognizing them or not. Or we could say Taiwan doesn't exist as a country, therefore whatever China does, they do, because China's, the Republic of China, Taiwan, is not a real country. You could go either way right now with how U.S. foreign policy stands. I think at this point, it is very clear that the winds are changing. The winds that had us during the times of Nixon saying that China could be our friends, and ended up actually making the Chinese our friends in popular culture, which you could see in the movie Red Dawn, the original Red Dawn, as the Chinese were referenced in the movie to have actually fought on the side of the United States against the Soviet Union and had been nuked for it. That was actually what they said in the movie, and that's because at the time the movie was made, China was actually a fairly good friend of the United States, although being a communist country. Things have changed, though, since then, massively. We're not really friends with the Chinese anymore. If anything, the feelings are disinterested or unfriendly, and they're starting to move into the area of being hostile. And for that reason, I think it's more important for us to start shifting our foreign policy into what it used to be back in the 1950s and 60s, back to where we are full in with Taiwan. Taiwan is our friend. We recognize the sovereignty and the legitimacy of the Republic of China's government, and we make sure to back them up through and through against the communist Chinese. I think that's what we need to do going forward, because it's clear that clearly relations are not going to be improving with the communist Chinese to make us have to walk that gray area like we have been over the past few decades. So with that, I hope that does address that. the best I can, at least in my opinion. And also on top of that, just on a matter of principle, the United States doesn't bow down to foreign countries that threaten us. And so for that reason, we have to just step up and support Taiwan simply because the Chinese have now lightly threatened us. It's just a matter of principle at that point. But with that, I hope that
Can you imagine what kind of power play that would be after China says, you don't show up here to Taiwan because we told you not to. Also, we have your allies surrounded, and you can either piss off or you can support the one China policy. Wouldn't that be a power move to send someone there and say, well, we're on the island, where are you? And that China wouldn't obviously not do anything because they would be crazy to do something. They would definitely, like, you know, it would call their bluff on that. That would be a massive, like, propaganda win for the United States to do that. Massive.
I think it would be huge. And I think that's something that we certainly need to do, and I would agree with you completely on that, Matthew. And also, I see a lot of people saying, I'm pretty sure the Taiwanese people, or the Republic of China's people, would not want to live under the rule of the People's Republic of China. And you're entirely right. And the sad story is, no one wants to live in the People's Republic of China, Communist China. And some of the people who got hit the worst by that were the British subjects who lived in Hong Kong when Hong Kong was handed over to the Chinese in 1999. Well, actually, no, it was 1997, sorry. But that was an unfortunate thing because no one in Hong Kong wants to be a part of China. And it was just such a horrendous thing because the thing is with Hong Kong is that Hong Kong wasn't given over permanently to the British because by the time that the British ended up taking Hong Kong from China, which, by the way, just to point this out, Hong Kong at the time, when it was taken by the British, was literally a completely insignificant village of about 10,000 people who lived in the area of what is now the major city of Hong Kong. At the time, the British just wanted it so that way they could have a trading port in the area to continue to fuel the actual Qing dynasty with opium, because it was a pretty profitable thing. And so they ended up signing, I believe it was a 97-year lease in 1899. I think it was a 99-year lease in 1899, something like that. But they ended up signing a lease for the area. They did not sign they didn't take the land and say this is now British land. They just said, we're going to lease it. So it'll be British land during the lease, but at the end of the lease, we're going to hand it back over to whoever the Qing dynasty is at that point, if they're still the Qing dynasty. And so they took it, they ended up running it, and under British rule, Hong Kong became one of the most profitable cities in the world. In fact, it was the most profitable city for a while in the area next to Singapore, which was also a British subject as well in the area. The British, funnily enough, y'all, I do not mean to say this in support or condemnation of the British going around the world and doing what they're doing in empire building, but the British were great at just bringing economic prosperity into just far-flung corners of the world. Hong Kong and Singapore are modern-day living examples of British success in the region. But beyond that, Hong Kong flourished under British rule, but once the lease started to end, the British tried to see about extending the lease, but the Communist government of China did not want that. They wanted to bring Hong Kong under their rule so that way they could act like it was their success. And so in 1997, the British ended up handing over Hong Kong back to the Chinese, the People's Republic of China. And since then, we have seen that the People's Republic of China has slowly started to kill what made Hong Kong successful in the beginning, which are the kind of economic policies that makes Hong Kong a trade hub. And so it's a really unfortunate thing. I'm not going to lie. And I'm seeing some people saying, oh, Brit lover. I saw someone say Brit lover. Hey, man, listen, if someone did something successful, I'm not going to deny it just because they're British. I mean, Hong Kong is one of the most successful cities in the world from what it came from and what it is now. And a lot of people did not want to return back to China. In fact, a referendum was held in Hong Kong, not that it was really their choice because the lease was going to end anyways. And I believe it was something like 97 to 98% of all people living in Hong Kong prefer to continue to live under British rule than future Chinese rule. Didn't matter, and now we can see that it's a huge mistake. And not only that, right on the other side of Hong Kong, I think it's somewhere up here. Oh, here it is Macau, which was a Portuguese, which was kind of like the same thing that Hong Kong was. It was kind of like a leased area of land, but run by the Portuguese, and they ended up handing it over back to the Communist Chinese as well. And now it's not really doing that well either, which is kind of unfortunate. But now both of them, instead of being like a British crown colony, or for the Portuguese, I forgot what the exact name of Macau was. Now they are special economic regions, SERs, within the People's Republic of China, which allows them to continue some of the economic practices that they had that made them major trading hubs, but over time, the People's Republic of China is slowly going to meld these into really just being a part of the rest of China, which is really unfortunate. But anyways, moving on from that, I don't think the same thing should be repeated with Taiwan. No one wants to live under communist Chinese rule, period. People want to live in self-determining countries that have some sort of at least bureaucratic bodies that exist in them at all, instead of a totalitarian state like the Chinese communist state is. And for that reason, just on the humanitarian level, much like it was with Ukraine, Taiwan should not become a part of communist China. On a strategic level, it also shouldn't become that either, but that's a whole other rabbit hole that would take a lot of time. But still, I hope that does address that the best I can, and with that, we are going to be moving on into the next one.
All right. And also, by the way, I saw someone mentioning how nice Singapore was. Singapore is very nice. Like, a lot of money flowing through there for sure. The Singapore airport is even crazier than that. Like, the state-of-the-art airport they've got there, like, I don't know if you got a picture of that, Enforcer, but that place is crazy. They have, like, this massive fountain in the middle of the airport, and there's, like, trees and greenery all over the interior. It's like it's like one of those, like, I forgot the name of it. Starts with a T. What's it? Terrarium? What's it called?
Terrarium?
A terrarium, is that it? That sounds wrong too, but I'll go with it.
An arboretum?
Maybe? Something like that. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all know what I mean. You know the thing.
Yeah, what happened? But let's see here. Here's some of the inside of the airport right here. This is what it is.
That.
Nice.
You can imagine how much work it takes to upkeep all that? That is probably a lot of money, like, being spent on upkeep.
Oh, it's got to be expensive. But Singapore is a very wealthy country. I mean, it's insanely wealthy. And let me go really quickly to the Singapore GDP. So I just want to put this in mind for all y'all. The city of Singapore has the population of the state of Alabama, but it has a GDP of 470 billion US dollars. Insane. It's huge. It's larger than Hong Kong. You can actually see that Hong Kong started to enter a period of economic stagnation after being handed over to the Chinese. Like, look, you can actually see it. Like, here's where Hong Kong was handed over to the Chinese in 1997. And it has not done well since. Hong Kong would have been on track at that kind of economic growth if it had never stopped to probably be up close to $700 billion in gross domestic product annually at this point. And now it's only middling at 359, while Singapore is skyrocketing into space. I mean, give them a few years' time, they will be up in the 600 to 700 billions. And that is unbelievable for a city-state with only 5.5 million people living in it and practically no territory. Because Singapore, if we get the border here, is this island right there. That's all Singapore is. It's just this one island. And it has a near $470 billion GDP. That's why they're able to afford insane things like this. And not only that, their wealth isn't going to be transient like the United Arab Emirates, which their wealth is built entirely on oil, which is a fleeting resource. And that's why we see that the United Arab Emirates is already starting to work on trying to create themselves into a tourist hub. Unlike them, Singapore is just at a major crossroads of the world, and for that reason, they have a major trading harbor. And that makes them an unlimited and endless amount of money. As long as trade continues, which will last forever, Singapore will make money, and they'll make tons of it. And so it's just so it's really cool to talk about city-states like Singapore, because they're such rare things in the modern world to exist. You don't see city-states a lot anymore, and for one to be so successful like Singapore is, it's truly crazy. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are moving on to the next one. But still, Singapore, well, really quickly, let me go get the British flag of Singapore. Let me go get it. Because Singapore. So let's see here. 1 second. I'm trying to go get the British flag of Singapore. So these are the British flags of Singapore, because Singapore was a crown colony of the United Kingdom, or really the British Empire, for a while. This was the first one that they had from 1874 to 1925, and this was the last one they had from 1952 to 1959. but it was a British colony. It was a British crown colony, and to be quite honest, if it was not for it being a British crown colony, it probably wouldn't have exploded in its success like it has today. But with that, hope that does address that the best I can, fairly well. And also another thing, some people are going to be going, well, Enforcer, why in the world do you say that the British ended up creating Hong Kong and Singapore into successful colonies, or really successful city-states? The reason is because the British have a specific, special kind of governance system in capitalism that runs off of corporations, guilds, and a really intricate kind of a bureaucracy, interestingly enough. That's where all modern bureaucracy, including American bureaucracy, and kind of balance of powers, checks of powers comes from, is from the British. And it is an amazing footprint for a country to follow because it allows for every single part of the economy to do their thing without stepping on the toes of others, you know, just out of their way like an authoritarian state. And it allows for everything to grow as successfully as possible, in my opinion. I think that the British economic footprint is one of the best to follow in the world because it's laid out the groundwork for the most successful economies out there right now, including the British, the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and South Korea, considering that the United States brought that influence to those two countries after the occupation of Japan and also after the Korean War, and we had a large part of shaping how South Korea and Japan formed. Also Taiwan, to an extent. And then many other countries as well, including Germany. Although Germany was economically successful before World War II, American occupation and American influence on shaping how Germany formed in modern day is a big reason why they're economically successful now. And that footprint is really the British footprint. Huge credit to them. Is really the reason why the Western world is so successful as it is right now. It's because of their economic footprint and also their governmental footprint as well. It's a very good one to follow. But with that, I hope that does address that. Also Iceland. Value Radar said, also Iceland! I was like, oh, I forgot. Yeah, Iceland too. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so with that, we are now fresh out of poll questions, and we'll be moving right into our super chat questions. But real quick, I wanted to address a question I saw out of the live chat. This one's from Jonathan. He said, whatever happened with the supposed Russian missile test off the coast of California? And we forgot to actually recap that the other day because we got clarification on what that was about. It was actually removed from the NOTAM site. That whole statement about Russia launching missiles near the California coast was completely removed. So I'm not sure exactly what the deal was with it. I don't know if it was maybe a mistake, an accident, or what. But you know, whatever the case was, it's gone now. So I always have to leave it up to speculation. But Enforcer, what do you think?
I would have to say that from what we know, it is a Soyuz rocket, and it's supposed that the second stage would land in several areas, and one of those areas was near to the southwestern coast of the United States. So that's what the exclusionary zone was for, from what I was told. It's nothing to do with weapons testing. It's more so to do with possible splashdown areas for a second stage of a Soyuz rocket. So luckily, it's nothing severe. It was nothing bad. It's just a possible location that booster could, that second stage could end up landing. So with that, I hope that does address that well. And also another thing, that's why the area was so large, is because the Russians really don't have a good approximation of where it will land. They know it will land in the ocean. It's just that they don't know where. And so that's why the exclusionary zone was so large as well. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you for asking about that, because we never recap that. And usually we have a pretty good habit of recapping what was going on or what was happening with everything that we cover. That one we completely forgot. So sorry about that. But thank you for supporting this channel and also asking what happened with that. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our super chat, our first one here, is going to go to SYI Tiger 907 once again, who this time threw in their second support of the night, and this one is a $100 donation, and that's actually their third support of the night, by the way, and huge shout out to SYI for that massive support. He said, I've been home here in Anchorage. I haven't been watching for a minute, was dealing with work and other stuff, and what's the differences from the front lines in Ukraine? I haven't been keeping up.
And That's what I thought, SYI Tiger. I thought you'd been back in Anchorage for a while. But nevertheless, it's good to have you back again tonight, SYI Tiger. And I completely understand, especially up there in Alaska. Work and other things have got to take up a lot of time, loads of time, because it's, from what I understand, it sounds to be difficult and expensive to live in Alaska. And so I completely understand that, but I hope that things have sorted themselves out incredibly well, and I hope that things have been going fine. And so to give you a little bit of an update on what's been going on the front lines, the Ukrainians, while you were gone, did end up losing Avdiivka, and so technically they lost the Battle of Avdiivka. Although it was really a Pyrrhic victory because the Russians took such high casualties taking the city, they're not really getting a lot out of it. Another thing that's happened is that we've seen that Russian offensives have begun in Bakhmut again, but have been making practically no progress at all, as the Russians started the offensive around, I believe it was late April, and planned on taking Chasiv Yar by the 9th of May, from what we know. Never even got close, and they're still not close to taking Chasiv Yar at the end of this month. Another thing that's happened as well is that a brand new offensive started up in the area of northern Kharkiv with around 50,000 Russian troops involved, and after just 2 days, the front lines pretty much completely stopped moving, and the Russians are now bogged down by superior Ukrainian defensive positions and also superior Ukrainian planning and strategy. So going off of that, right now, the frontline condition is fairly good. The front line is strenuous, however, with a large amount of strain being put on it by Russian offensives, but nevertheless, the situation is good. The offensives are being contained, the Russians are taking incredibly high losses, and so overall, the situation is a-okay. U.S. support is finally coming back in large numbers now that a Ukraine aid bill was passed of about $61 billion being given to Ukraine. We are now keeping up a steady flow of materials and equipment into Ukraine, which is helping them to once again reinvigorate their armed forces, making sure that they have enough artillery and munitions to be effective on the front lines, and we're also providing them with ATACMS. We're even starting to talk about now about lifting the restrictions and allowing those weapons to be used on the Russians inside of Russia. So going off of all of this, things are actually looking quite well at the moment. Things were pretty on the rocks for a bit, I will say that. I think when you were leaving SYI Tiger, when you left recently, a couple of months ago, things were starting to look like they were a little bit on the rocks, and not going to lie, now in retrospect, things got on the rocks pretty bad when U.S. support had completely dried up. We didn't really know how the war was going to be going at that point, but now that U.S. support is coming back in, things look great, and it looks like they're going to be continue to be on the up and up for Ukraine. And so with that, thank you for the massive amount of support, SYI Tiger, and thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. It's incredible to have you here with us again tonight. I hope I was able to catch you up to speed on some of the major talking points over the past couple of months on what's been going on, and thank you greatly for being a longtime legend of the channel and supporting this channel massively tonight and helping us to keep it rolling. It is folks like you who day in and day out help this channel to be possible, help us to be able to make a living doing this, and help us to keep on doing it well into the future. And I gotta thank you so much once again for being here once more. And I hope that you're here to stay. I hope that you're here with us every single night, because we enjoyed having you here, and we always loved hearing about the cool stories of those frontier towns way off in the far frontiers of Alaska. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
In our next one here is going to go to Ari Sweeney yet again, who threw in yet another $50 super chat. Massive support from the Kiwi wife in Finn. And Ari said, for world peace, eventually, and Slav Ukraine, and LSA, and live chat question, please.
And Slav Ukraine and LSA, and we will make sure to get that live chat. But I gotta say, Ari Sweeney, that is an incredible goal, world peace. That is something that will probably take a very long time to achieve, but as long as we all continue to strive and work towards making sure that the Western sphere continues to exceed and rise above the rest, not the West, but rise above the rest for generations to come. Eventually, I believe the world peace will finally come around. It will take a long time, though. But I think that it will be in view of our children's children, hopefully well on in the future. But it's something that everyone will always have to dedicate themselves, strive for, and also not back down in the face of tyranny and evil to try and achieve some form of temporary peace, because those pieces will never last. Only a well, hard-fought peace will truly exist for a long time. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the incredible support, Ari Sweeney, Kiwi wife, and Finn. And we will make sure to take that live chat in y'all's honor. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right. And the live chat question here is going to go to Christian Cruz, who says, do you think that Russia will hit 500,000 lost tomorrow or Sunday?
You know, good question. Let me let me go to the casting report and see. Because right now we know they're taking about maybe 1,000 to 1,400 a day lost. Oh, they are hitting 500,000. Like, no doubt. If they keep up these kinds of losses, 500,000 will be hit tomorrow, which is whack, really. Because I remember at the beginning of this year, I think it was around maybe it just broken 300,000, and now it's almost gotten up to 500,000 over just the past few months. So I would certainly say they will hit 500,000 tomorrow, and they will probably be getting well beyond that just in the next couple of weeks at this rate. And so with that, thank you so much once again for sponsoring that live chat, Ari Sweeney, Kiwi Wife, and Finn. And I hope I was able to address that fairly well, at least about the loss rates. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And our next one goes to Kaylin Williams, who threw in their first ever super chat on the stream.
Hey!
And huge shout out to that $25 support from Kaylin. And they said, in your opinion, take the weapons and soldiers away. And to put Zelenskyy and Putin in the ring, who's walking away alive?
Oh, hang on 1 second. Let me... Zelenskyy.
Let's get their height and weight.
Yeah, let's get their height and weight. So Zelenskyy is 5'7". And let's see. Putin height. They're the same size. They're both 5'7". Okay, so now, yeah, we do need to get on to the weight. So, weight. Let's see here. No one has an answer to that question. Nobody. Literally nobody. So let's see.
I have a feeling that my boy Zelenskyy, he might have the fighting advantage, but Putin might know the firearms a little bit better. So, Putin could be a coward and pull out a firearm. You never know.
So, let's see here. So, according to some information I'm finding, Vladimir Putin is somewhere in between 150 to 170 pounds. So...
What? Really? He's man.
Twig. Like a twig.
Really?
So
for reference, I'm 175. So that's for reference.
Dude, you would beat Putin's ass. Like it's like it wouldn't even be a fight. But
although I will say though, like Putin allegedly knows martial arts. You know, that might be something there. Is he one of those people, since he likes to hang around the Bullshido master? What's his name? Steven Seagal. He likes to hang around Seagal a lot. So does he do the Aikido crap?
I think he does actually. I think he did a little bit. But one thing I know that Putin does, I think it's jujitsu, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I think it could be. He's got a black belt.
But I just got an answer. I was looking around. Zelenskyy is apparently, the best I can find, he is around 165 pounds. So they are both. Dang. They are both lightweights. Like honestly, it's like kind of shocking. I'm like, they're both lightweights. Like really? So going off of that, at least as far as height and weight, Putin and Zelenskyy are literally perfectly matched. As far as their age goes, Putin is way older than Zelenskyy, and for that reason, I believe that Zelenskyy would absolutely maul Putin alive in the ring. Because, well, hell, in a blood bowl, I think Zelenskyy would win simply because he is younger, and for that reason, he'll have more stamina and probably more muscle, just for that reason alone. And so, with that, I hope we were able to get a breakdown of the height and weight of Zelenskyy and Putin, and also a little bit of age, so that we could kind of get an idea of who's going to beat each other's ass. And it appears that Zelenskyy is going to beat Putin pretty badly in that go-around, because the only thing that differentiates them is age, and Zelensky's got a lot less years on Putin. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And also, Zelenskyy is known as Swolensky, because he's actually been lifting the weights. Honestly, maybe for a hoedown.
America, I need more whey. I need more lean protein. America, like, I want to thank the United States of America for getting me this great protein mix.
But beyond that,
I go to the Chipotle and I get the double protein as the guac. I'm paying the $2.25 extra. I'm getting guac.
I'm telling you what, Zelenskyy is about to put Putin down on the ground. He's about to beat the man to death.
But beyond that, I hope that does address that well. Great question, by the way. That was actually a really creative question. I like that one. Because we got to go into something that we know nothing about, which is who would beat each other up. And also, one thing that's crazy to me is that Matthew and me are 6 foot. Let's see. I think Matthew is
6'1".
6'1", and on my driver's license I'm 6'3", but I honestly think I'm 6'2". I don't know why in the world on the driver's license it's 6'3" though, because they measured me and I was 6'3", apparently according to their ruler. But beyond that, that is crazy because Matthew and me would actually tower over both Putin and Zelenskyy if we ever saw them in person. Because I know we know someone, Matthew, who is 5'7", and we tower over them. So I was like, huh, that's wild. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you for throwing in a crazy cool question. That was actually a really interesting one to look into, Caitlin. So with that, thank you so much once again for your first super chat to the channel ever and making it a really memorable one. I really find that one to be really cool. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
Yes, indeed. And our next one is going to go to Barry Woodward, who throws in a $20 donation. And huge shout out to you, Barry, once again for that generous support as always. He says, Barnett Blanchard / Maggie Spence, World War II. Billy Woodward, Korean War. Michael Blanchard, Vietnam. And Ryan Woodward, Iraq War. Gave it all. And I know they would serve again if physically able. And RIP, Saviors of Freedom.
And thank you so much for the support, Barry Woodward. And I'd agree with you. A huge shout out to, well, not a shout out, but a massive amount of respect is owed to the service members who died in the line of service and the folks who have served and didn't die in the line of service. Every single one of them gave their best for this republic so that way it could continue to survive and thrive into the modern day and continue to face the next wave of challenges that the next generation would have to take on and then continue on the struggle to make sure that the fires that keep this nation alive continue to burn strong within its heart. And it's incredible to know that folks like those that I'm assuming you personally know, Barry Woodward, were a part of that story, this everlasting story of this nation and its people who continue to persevere and triumph against all odds to continue to have a say in the world and continue to exist. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Barry Woodward, and I hope that everyone has an amazing Memorial Day as well this weekend. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can. And also, before we move on, I've seen some people saying, dang, like, y'all are kind of tall, over 6 foot. Yes, we are actually both, no joke, over 6 feet. Like, it's not like us trying to say it just to sound cool, or because I don't really know how in the world height makes people cool. Like, I really don't. But one thing that is interesting about that is that there's a certain person out there who I believe, Matthew, is 5'5" or 5'6", who said they're going to realign our jaw. And I just find that very interesting because I don't even think they'd be able to reach our jaw.
You want to realign my jaw? Good luck.
It's like you could literally stick your hand out and just hold them by the forehead, and they would be swinging into the air in between. It's like you know, I don't really know how in the world that worked, but hey, they could give it a shot. Why not? But anyways.
Man, realign the jaw. I'm telling you what, some
jaw.
people, they crazy, man. He's like the same as that alpha male guy that came in here a minute ago talking about, you kids on YouTube and your stuff, you half y'all in here would screw the country over as you're weak. It's like, really, buddy? It's like, why you gotta come here and say that? You trying to compensate for something? You trying to feel better? At least that Sophie didn't run off and leave me though.
But you know something about those kinds of folks that I find funny? I'll be honest. I'll level with you all about my opinion on people who are like that, who are like, oh, you gotta be a badass. Usually they're like working the same kind of jobs that the people they're saying that to are, like, I don't know, running a donut store, and it's like, you're not really saving the world or being an absolute badass by running a donut store. You may as well just be like anyone else. So sit down and shut up and stop acting like you're way better than everyone else, because you do the exact same things, you live in the exact same country, and you exist in the exact same society as everyone else. You just got a complex about yourself that makes you feel like a macho man. Like, just sit down and drop that crap, because it's stupid. And it's embarrassing, and it's embarrassing everyone here. And that's honestly how I feel about people like that. I cannot stand people who live lives just like everyone else, but they act like they're hard or bad or something for no reason. I don't get it. Like, I'm like you could actually be a tolerable and enjoyable person to be around, and instead you decide to be this. It's like, I don't even know why. Like, it doesn't even do anything for anyone.
The people that are actually capable of doing something they realize I don't want to do anything like that because, you know, it's not preferable to get into altercations with people and stuff like that. And it's also not preferable to threaten people either. But the people you see running around talking about, I'm going to realign some jaws today. It's like, dude, trust me, like you've never realigned no jaws. And also you've never had your jaw realigned either. You wouldn't be talking like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's so stupid. I mean, it's absolutely goofy. And also to think that makes you look good. It's like haven't you ever heard I just don't get it when people threaten like that. It's like, haven't you ever heard of like assault charges or anything like that? Like the laws of this country and the laws of every country around the world make sure that there is punishment for even a threat of violence, because in society that's unexpected. That's considered bad behavior, and it's something that will be punished. And it's like, I don't even know why in the world people would go down that route. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't. And I don't even know how in the world to quantify that into words, because it's just something that is so stupid, I can't even really comprehend it to speak on it too much. But one thing I will say is that if someone was like that in real life, and there have been people in the past that we have dealt with who were like that in real life, we're not going to back down. I mean, why in the hell would I back down? You know, it's like that makes no sense. I mean, you know, I'm not into threatening people or fighting people, but if someone's going to threaten me and try and fight me, I'm not backing down. Why the hell would I do that? It's like I'm just doing my thing. I'm living my life. This guy is coming up here out of the blue trying to mess with folks. It's like, why would you do that? So you know, that's my take on it. So do with that what you will. Take with that what you will. But anyways, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, I was just told by our statistician, or statistician, however you want to say it, I was just told that losses have just hit 500,000 as of right now. Just hit it. Thanks to Miss Disa for that information.
Let me go to Twitter. I knew it was Miss Disa when you said statistician. I was like, Miss Disa is the records keeper. So let's go to Kyiv Independent. It should be right up here. They're on their screen. Oh, it must be on the Ministry of Defense's website because they don't have an infographic yet. It's still the one from yesterday, it seems. Is it even? I don't even see. Nope, there it is. So it's still the one for yesterday on Kyiv Independent. But y'all just heard it here, folks. Thanks to Miss Disa. Huge shout out to Miss Disa. The casualty report just surpassed 500,000 wounded and killed in Ukraine. An unbelievable figure. That is actually twice the amount of subscribers that we have on this channel. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best we can and break that breaking news to y'all right here and now, and we just got it, because that is some succulent Russian losses. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat is going to go to Panama Floyd, yet another channel legend who threw in a $20 donation. Huge shout out to Panama for that support. He said, in reference to thank you for your service, is it possible how veterans respond to it varies whether they were combat or logistics troops, and would also like to hear what veterans themselves think about the question.
Maybe so. That's actually a good question. Let us know, folks, the veterans in the chat. What is y'all's take on that? Because I'm very interested. Now, really quickly, while people are weighing in their personal experience, I will throw in mine, and I want to make this clear. This is not disparaging any MOS in the armed services or anything like that. This is just talking about my personal experience and what I've noticed. People who have actually been deployed and have been in combat and have killed people are usually some of the nicest, quietest, and most respectable people I've ever run into that have been veterans. And I've run into a good amount of them. And what's interesting is that you never know that they did that kind of stuff until you talk to them a good bit. Because Matthew remembers this. There was a guy who lived on our street. He's been dead for years now. He died from Parkinson's disease, but he was a great guy, and he actually served in Vietnam in the Air Force as a electrician of some sort. I forgot the exact electrician type that he was, but he was out there near Pleiku in Vietnam, right about here, in between Pleiku and the Cambodian border, and he would go out there and he would conduct electrical work for the Air Force and also electrical work for CIA listening posts that were set up inside of Cambodia. And he told me that later on because he was like, you know, that sounds outlandish, but they would tell us to take off over insignia. We would cross the border and we would set up a listening post and then we'd leave. But that guy actually ended up killing people. I never knew that until way later on, and actually saw folks around him that he knew get killed. But the guy was the nicest guy I have ever run into, and you would have never known that listening to him. And on top of that, he just talked about things. I'll be like, so what kind of barracks did you sleep? And he'd be like, oh, actually, we slept on a ship, like out at sea. Like they would fly us out there, like on helicopter, and we would get showers, we'd sleep, but there was no like barbecue on the beaches or, he would just talk like that. And then one day he finally started talking about his real experiences. And I was like, you would have never known that. And then on other instances, and in case if anyone is watching that's from one of the local gun stores, this isn't y'all. The gun store I'm talking about went out of business. I don't know what happened to people who were there, but there was a gun store in town here in Birmingham, and I would go in there, and there was this guy who was tatted up, and he acted honestly kind of like a jackass, or a badass if you want to call him that. And everything was, survival of the fittest, the toughest, the roughest. And I was always like, huh. So finally one day, there's a guy said he was in the military. I said, oh, well, what did you do? He was like, I was in the Air Force. I worked as a mechanic. And I was like, wait a minute, so you're acting like a badass and you were in the Air Force as a mechanic? I was like, did you see any action? No, I just sat in a plywood box all day on my Xbox. And I was like, so wait a minute, you're acting like a badass and you didn't even do anything? I was like, what is this? I was like, and I've run into people in the past, people who were in the third wave on D-Day, people who were in Vietnam and ended up watching folks die around them and get killed. And these people were always the nicest and most polite people. And I run into this guy here at this gun store who acts like he's a badass. It looks like a John Wick imitator, and he never even fought at all. He just served, kind of sat in an Xbox, sat in a cubicle, played Xbox, really didn't do much. And then he acts like he's like the baddest and toughest guy on earth. And I was like, that just doesn't make any sense. And then that's when I started to kind of get the idea. People who kind of lean a little bit too much into being a veteran, at least in my experience, just dealing with the veterans I've dealt with, may have not really done much in the military. It's the people who did a lot in the military who completely downplay it and don't even really talk about it that much. At least that's what I've seen in my personal experience. But, it could be entirely different from person to person, so that's what I'm going to say about it. It's not something that is like hardline rule. That's what I've run into. And that's the kind of conclusions I came to. But Matthew, what were you laughing about right there?
Alv said he has 20 years experience in the COD lobby, LOL. It's like, he served, man. He saw some action. He got in there into that multiplayer and went at it. That was something, and it was something that really just blew me away, because I was like, this guy, because I'd never really run into a veteran like that before. Like, all the veterans I had talked to had killed people, had been in combat, were usually in some kind of a role where they got shot at, they shot at people, or they were actually in the infantry or something like that. And then I run into this guy who was in the Air Force, not in a combat role, even admitted that he had never been shot at, never was even in danger, and he's acting like that. And I was like, I think that's one that in my mind, I was like, anyone who really brags a little bit too much or leans too hard into their military service probably didn't really do a lot in the military. Like they weren't out there putting their lives on the line, kind of a deal. And that's the kind of conclusion I came from just from my personal experiences. And I'm seeing a lot of people, like Net Raven Gaming, that said, it's the quiet ones that look like Mr. Peepers, that are the Stone Cold Killers. That honestly is my personal experience in that. And, y'all can have completely different experiences. And some of the veterans in here may be completely different people than the ones I've run into. But those are the kind of folks that I ran into, and those were the kind of conclusions that I've came up with just going through my life and doing my thing and running into folks. And so, let's see. I'm seeing some people. I'm trying to read the chat. Let's see. That's why I'm scared for my enlisted. I want to be somewhere I can be next to the brave, serving beside them instead of being stuck on a base. Yeah, that makes sense. And a lot of people don't want to be the guy left behind that didn't do anything. That was a big thing in World War I. But let's see. Christian Cruz says, same thing with the Gurkhas, the sweetest, most humble people you'll ever meet. And that's something I have, it looks like a lot of people are agreeing in the chat about that. It looks like even veterans, everyone's agreeing with that in the chat, even veterans as well, people who know veterans. And that's why
I always, and I'll be honest, that's why I'm always a little bit leery about people who lean a little bit too much into their military service on YouTube. Like people who are like, oh, I was in the army for 5 years, and then I was in the reserve for 5 years, and I'm a sergeant. You must respect me. You must bow down and kiss my toes. It's like all of the veterans I ever ran into were never like that. I mean, they were just like, hey, I'm Bill. And I'd be like, hey, what's up, Bill? Like, what did you do? Oh, nothing really. And then once you talk to him, you're like, oh my God, this guy did everything. Like, this guy may as well have been in the Green Berets with what he was up to and what he was doing over there. And he would have never told you. He would have never told me. Hell, he didn't even tell his family. Because when I was at his funeral, because I went to his funeral because he passed away and I knew him well enough to go, I went to his funeral and his sons were saying, yeah, man, like, he never even told us any of that stuff. Like, you know, you're the only person in the world he told those stories to. I don't know why he did, but he did. And I was, and that really solidified my mindset from there forward. People who put their lives on the line rarely ever talk about it. They really don't want to relive those experiences or think about it. They don't look at military service as being something that people have got to kiss or worship the ground they walk on about. They just get on with their lives and they do their thing. And that's what I've seen in my personal experience. But with that, I hope that does address that, and also getting back to that. That's why, once again, recircling to this. That's why whenever I see anyone on the internet who is really leaning into their military service way too much, I'm always like, I wonder what role they were in. And to be quite honest, the test I have or the mindset I have stands up because they're truck drivers or they're reservists or something like that that are really leaning hard into it. And I'm like, you know, I don't like I can't speak for it. I haven't been in the military, but I'm honestly not a big fan of that. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And thank you so much for the support and asking a really interesting question. It looks like we got some pretty interesting stuff, some pretty interesting comments about that in the chat. And also, Nick, no, I'm not in the military and never have been. I wouldn't even be allowed to because of scoliosis and how severe it is. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to Destiny Edgington, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much for that support, Destiny. And they said Zelenskyy and Putin could fight, and whoever wins gets territory.
They could do that, but I think Putin wouldn't want to because he knows that the Belgrade Oblast would be Zelensky's by the end of that fight. But still, that's a pretty funny idea, Destiny. I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, in making this channel possible, because folks like you help to make this thing a reality and help us to keep this thing running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running and coming up with a really interesting idea. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And the next one goes to Boulder Boy, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Boulder Boy, once again for that support. And he says $20 to realign your wallet. Oh man, I'm telling you what, my poor old wallet.
Oh man, we're gonna be realigning that wallet. But still, thank you so much for the support. Thank you for realigning the wallet. It helps a little bit. And well, actually, it helps us a lot. And I got to thank you so much for that. And thank you so much once again for really enjoying this channel and really finding it worthwhile support, because folks like you help to make this thing possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for the support. And Matthew. Yes, go ahead. You were actually getting into the slide to the next one.
So yes, indeed. And also, real quick, I saw a comment from Bobo Uzala that I had to address. I can't resist. He said, gotta hang your dress uniform in the background, talking about shilling service. Yeah, you've got a point right there. Now, I know this isn't quite the same thing, but, you know, me and Andrew were in JRTC in high school. We still have our dress uniform. Why don't we go and hang our little dress uniform behind our head and stuff like that? And also, by the way, all the veterans, all the veterans I've ever known, and most of the people in the chat are going to agree with us that are veterans, they don't go around constantly advertising that they were in the military. Because like the people said about being thanked for their service, they don't really like being thanked for their service because, for one thing, they feel like they've done a debt to the country, and for various reasons, they don't like to be thanked. So, like the enforcer said, when someone goes really far out of their way to, like, literally put up a billboard saying I served and use it to, like, gain, like, some type of advantage or something like that on purpose, that's like a red flag. I think the veterans even know that's a red flag. That's kind of weird. But you have a point, Bobo. But with that, we're moving into our next support. And this one goes to Joe Hobo00, who puts in an $11 donation. And a huge shout out to Joe for that support. He said Russia is mad at the US and EU because they look like trash by comparison, and that their government doesn't want people to know how bad they're being fleeced, and Putin's oppression will end soon, and Slava Ukraine.
Absolutely. You're hitting that dead on the nail. And that's what really does get the Russians pissed, is that they know that Russia is far worse off than Europe or the United States. Very few Russians ever make it to America to know that. But the ones who do carry a very strong hatred for America, and I think it's entirely because of that reason. And so going off of that, I would say that, in my opinion, you're absolutely dead on the nail. I wonder what the Russians really would think if they were able to afford trips to Europe in a larger amount. Not to Eastern Europe, but to places like Western Europe, like the United Kingdom, Germany, or France. What would they think? It's a completely different world. It's a completely different income bracket, for that matter, compared to Russia, by huge leaps and bounds. And so, I would have to say that is something I'd entirely agree with completely, and that may be why they're trying to make sure that they keep the Russian public down and out on the information end, and kind of keep them ignorant to the world outside of Russia. Although they don't do it as much as North Korea does, by far. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for throwing in a good comment and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one is going to go to Yone Ranger, who puts in a 10 and says, for the old school pizza fun.
Hey, no way. Thank you for the old school pizza fun. And thank you for supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing running. Because it is folks like you who help the old school pizza fun to keep alive. And very few people put in support to the pizza fun. But we're always happy to receive some here and there. So that way we can have a little pizza here and there. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you so much for helping this channel to be possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and up next, we've got a $10 super chat from Uncovered Cube, who says, I'm here for the news, a few rabbit holes, and a history lesson or two, and hold the hot dog, please. LSA.
Oh, we're going to hold the hot dog. And again, thank you so much once again for support. And thank you for being here for the news, the rabbit holes, the jokes, and the Lee Spring Army in the chat. And it's wonderful to know that you're here for all those things, because for 821 days now, we have pretty much endlessly made sure that these things are in a reality and exist. And I love to know that so many people continue to enjoy and love being here on this channel and continuing to just really be here. I mean, not keep it running, but just be here. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, and thank you for helping this channel to keep running. And I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Jenna, last name Tolls, who puts in a $10 donation. It says Putin is a lady.
What? Putin's a lady? Oh, man, I don't even know where to go with that one. But still, thank you so much for the support, Jenna Tolls. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running and helping this thing to be possible. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, hey, where would we be? We wouldn't be here, that's for sure. And so with that, thank you once again. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to IR Marmot, who puts in a 10. And the Marmot is here today. And you know something, before I read off this super chat, rest in peace to the Doge who did die today, the actual Doge.
What?
Not Cheems. Cheems died a while back. The real Doge died today. Rest in peace to Doge. And also the Marmot still with us. But they said Putin is too broken to pay bots tonight.
No way. I cannot believe that. I didn't know that the Doge dog died today.
The real Doge died today, sadly. It passed.
Dang. That's terrible. That meme's been around forever. But
Cheems
beyond...
and Doge are dead now.
Dang, man, it's a sad world out there. No more dog memes. But beyond that, well, actually, the dog memes will never die.
I was going to say no more dog meat. I was like, dog meat?
No, Matthew. Yeah, well, you know what? We'll hold off on that. But beyond that, you saw me zoom out. You thought I was going to do. But beyond that, I got to say, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, really quickly, I want to make sure that I can reread this to make sure that I got it right. Let me make sure.
It was too broken to pay the bots tonight.
What? Oh,
Putin
dang,
too
this is
broken to
way
pick a
up.
box tonight.
Oh, here we go. I finally found it. And I would agree with you. Putin is too broke to pay the boss tonight because we've had very few of them. I've seen Matthew Bannon a few here and there, but there's not really any of them at all. And so that, thank you so much for the support, IR Marmot. And I love to see their profile pictures of the Marmot. Oh, hello there. But with that, thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one is going to go to Notorious GRG, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Notorious, for that support, first of all. And also, look at that. The LSA flag in the profile picture. I'm telling you what, that is top tier level LSA right there. He said for the fun.
Hey, I like that one, Notorious GRG. The fun. What could we do with the fun? We could go out to eat. And that's it. Like that's it. That's really all we do for fun. We go out to eat. Or, well, let's see, I go to the range here and there. And let's see, what else?
I'll buy a chocolate bar.
Yeah, I mean, a chocolate bar is pretty good. We could rent a little movie or a TV show, and I could watch that here on the computer. All kinds of things. We could do all kinds of stuff with a fun. But nevertheless, Notorious GRG, I thank you for the support of this channel and helping it to keep on running. And thank you for also getting an LSA flag as well. Nice profile picture. And thank you for supporting the fun. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Wyatt Logan, who put in a $10 donation. And huge shout out to Wyatt for that support. He said, "Hello, enforcers. Thank you for the hard work. Question: did you ever have any type of idea or foresight of what this channel would turn into? And I've been here since around day 150 and have enjoyed the journey." And LSA. I'll be honest with you, Wyatt. Like, I just joined the channel. Busy Enforcer started it. I joined it. And I was like, oh, this will be a good, like, side hobby and things like that. And it kept going along. It kept going along, growing slowly day by day. The only time that me personally, that I've ever thought that I know that we have foresight the channel is going to go places is after we basically turned a new leaf and left law school. Once we did that, I knew I was going all in on it, and we've been running with it ever since. And it's been growing at a pace that we've never seen before, ever since we put full time into it. But it's been a hell of a journey indeed. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, no, I actually never really knew where this channel was going to be going. We kind of came up with a good idea now, but back in the day, we had no idea. All I knew is that I wanted to cover the war news in Ukraine, and that's what we were going to do. And so I remember thinking, this war will last about a year or a year and a half, and I'm going to do that for that year or year and a half while I'm in undergrad, and then by then the war will be over, and I'll move on into law school, and that'll be the next chapter of my life. And then that year and a half kind of passed, and then law school was on me, and the war was not ending anytime soon. And not only that, a lot of people were really enjoying this channel at that point, and I was sitting there thinking, well, dang, I was like, I kind of like doing this a lot. Like, I would really rather not go to law school. And Matthew will know that in the background, now that we can talk this in retrospect, Matthew and my parents were both like, maybe you need to just not do YouTube and just focus on law school. And I was like, nah, I think I could do both. Because the reality was, I wasn't wanting to say it, but the reality was I love doing this way more than I ever knew I would love law school. So I didn't really want to give it up because I knew this was what I really loved doing more. And so after a while of going through law school, I knew law school sucks. I knew in my heart I wanted to do this more, and I'm going to go back to doing this full time, and just do it completely full time. And so then that's what we did. We dropped out of law school, and now we're in this full time. But I never really knew where the channel was going to be going, and now we have a really good idea that we are going to pretty much be moving into the world news sphere in the future. And some people will be like, oh, and some people are like, yay, and really, hopefully everyone's saying yay, because we have seen that so many people enjoy when we cover world news now. Like when we cover the Iran, the Middle Eastern news, more people watch that, just the videos and the content we made on that when we had content to make, than they ever did on Ukraine. And the same thing with East Asia. The video that we made yesterday on Taiwan has gotten 192,000 views. Well, actually, correction. It has gotten 193,000 views. It's one of the highest viewed videos we've ever made. It's in, like, I think the top 15. And that is something crazy to me to think that so many of y'all are enjoying the different kinds of news that we're making. And now we have kind of a good idea, not to give y'all like our massive roadmap, and it kind of depends on how fast or slow this channel grows. we actually intend on making this YouTube channel into a world news channel where we get to cover all kinds of things. And in the future, we will be able to actually travel around and be on location reporting things and make long form documentaries and stuff like that. That's something that we're looking forward to trying to do with this channel. So nowadays we have a fairly good idea of where the future of the channel will be going. But in the past, we never really had an idea. I never really had an idea. And like Matthew said, he kind of just hopped on board at the beginning because I was like, I need help, Matthew, and I need you to be on here. And then he hopped on, and now he's here permanently too. But with that,
Isn't it funny though? Like I was like the person that sort of came along and was like the what's it called? Like it was a dark necessity. Like when I came on the channel to immediately sort of like compulsory start the secret police of the LSA. I just did that all on my own, and it started with doing surveillance on the mods that flipped on us the first time. Those the mods that had the schism had to monitor them in the background. Did my own like OSINT work on them to figure out what they were doing. Then we figured out what they were doing, and then we had our contingency plan in place for when they did it. And sure enough, it went off without a hitch. And they're out of the picture now. But you know, we still have the secret police at the LSA. It's still going on even to this day. It's funny. And the funny part is, we have a whole secret police that keeps make sure this channel is above board and make sure everything's going great. It's like a big circle of accountability in the LSA.
and that's true. And another thing about the secret police is that they are an unfortunate necessity, because I would rather not have to have a secret police that went around and had to monitor everything about us, but there are enough crazy people out there that they have to exist. And I got to give a huge shout out to all of those silently serving right now in the Lee Spring Army Secret Police. Y'all know who you are, who help us out constantly and making sure to keep an eye on people who are threatening us and all sorts of other things, because over time it is just continuously grown. At this point right now, while we're talking, the Lee Spring Army Secret Police are about the largest they've ever been, with the most members. We're not going to get into how many there are, but they are constantly paying attention to every single threat that is rising up from around the internet, and making sure to get every bit of info. And it's actually a little scary to watch it in action. Matthew is kind of the one who runs it. So nowadays, what's interesting is that people are scared of talking crap about Enforcer Matt, because he's the one who runs the secret police. So instead, they only talk crap about me because they think that I have nothing to do with it. And I kind of really don't. I just run the channel. But
And also, just to be clear, it's just for observation, by the way. Like, I know it sounds like oh, secret police. It's literally just a group of people that are like, oh, let's keep tabs on, these people that are making threats against us. Let's keep tabs on them and make sure that they stay, nice and docile and remain a keyboard warrior and don't try to transfer themselves into a real world warrior, because we wouldn't want that. But that's why we have the secret police. They're just here for protection. That's all.
you know what? Should we call them the secret police or the secret service? Because like, a secret police kind of sounds like an authoritarian sort of a thing. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, we're not really like going around, doing things or anything like that. We're not even saying anything. We're just simply observing. That's all.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna call them, the Secret Service, man. It was the Secret Police. I was thinking about that. I was like, that doesn't really sound that great. So the Secret Service of the channel, the Lee Spring Army Secret Service, does its thing observing folks. But it is kind of scary to watch them in action, because once someone actually makes an actual threat of a sort, like this one net from New Zealand who keeps on saying, I'm not threatening him, and then he'll say, you're next, and it's like, what, can you make up your mind? Like, it's actually shocking, though, to watch some of the members of the Secret Service at work, because they can, within hours, find everything out about a person who does issue a threat like that, which is very good for us. It really does assure us that if anything does happen, we'll most likely be able to contact authorities and just completely completely remove an altercation from the equation. But still, I'd sit there and look at that. I'm like, dang, that's wild. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and I thank you so much once again for the support and help with this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and we have a poll to address. It says, military veterans, which branch did you serve in? It looks like only 141 people answered the poll, so I assume that's the veterans, hopefully. 41% said Army, 25% said Air Force, 15% said Marines, 19% said Navy. So we have the fewest amount of Marines here, 16% now, and we have the most Army. So everyone signed up for the Army. It looks like a good bit of people signed up for the Air Force. So very interesting to see. So we have a ton of army people here. But Enforcer, what say you?
And that is a lot of army people. 40% are the army. But I like to see it. The army's not a bad place. A lot of people rap on the army. Honestly, a lot of people rap on the Navy. And I don't know why. I don't think the Navy is a bad place. I think the Navy is actually really cool, especially when you think of it. You could become a captain and actually be the captain of a vessel, which is a fairly large responsibility. And so I think that's really cool to know that there are a decent amount of folks who are from the Navy, but loads of y'all are from the Army. And so apparently the Army's great, the Army's tough, and all that stuff. But still, with that, thank y'all for answering that. That's really interesting to look at. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Thomas Kruger, who puts in a $10 donation, and a huge shout out to Thomas for that support, and we appreciate it very much. He says, thank you guys for what you do, and remembering my late Bronze Star Purple Heart combat infantryman, Bad's father.
And thank you so much for the support, and unfortunate to hear that he passed, but nevertheless, it sounds like he certainly did a lot to help out this nation and where it is today. And it's incredible to know that folks like that have been around, laid down their lives, and have served to defend this nation. Because it's never an easy thing for a nation to exist. It's really an endless struggle to make sure that a nation survives. And folks like those are the folks that have the strongest backs and the strongest of will that make sure that this nation will survive. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that the best I can, and I hope that you have the best Memorial Day that you can possibly have tomorrow. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one is going to go to Rio Williams, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you, Rio, as well. He said, if you had to speculate, if you were forced to speculate, if you were compelled to speculate, what do you think? What do you think is the most likely end of this war as far as borders are concerned?
I think at this point, the most likely end to the war will be that Ukraine reclaims everything except, or they also get everything but the Donbass, or they get everything. Those are the two things I think will happen at this point. Ukraine clearly has to retake Crimea. That is an imperative Western objective. We will not be happy with Ukraine ending the war until Crimea is retaken. I know that for sure. And that will require for them to retake Kherson and Zaporizhia. The Donbass could be lost. If anything had to be lost, it could be the Donbass. It was already before the war, a mostly Russian population of over 50%. On top of that, it has been so far detached from Ukraine for since 2014, which has been 10 years now, that it wouldn't really be that serious of a loss to lose parts of the Donbass. But to be quite honest, I'm still thinking, and some people may say this is very positive, but I'm still thinking positively, and I think that Ukraine could actually retake all of it. Some people are going to crap on that. Some people are going to crap on me saying that they're going to not retake the Donbass. People are going to crap on any opinion I have on that, to be quite honest, because people are very violent and vehement about that kind of a thing, about what Ukraine will get back. But to be quite honest with you, I want to be an optimist and say that Ukraine can get everything back by the end of the war. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you so much for support and asking a really good question. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And our next one here is going to go to Bullwinkle, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Bullwinkle. I said Memorial Day is not for veterans who survived without injury to live lives. The day is for those who didn't come home or could not live normal lives.
And I thank you for the support, and that's entirely true, Bullwinkle. And I would love to actually see a differentiation in between Veterans Day and Memorial Day, because one thing that I've always found a little bit annoying is that Veterans Day turns into Memorial Day, if y'all know what I mean. Like, there is always the for example, the unknown soldier kind of ceremony, things like that. And that has its place, and a massive amount of respect to the folks who laid down their lives. But that place is Memorial Day. Veterans Day is to celebrate all the folks who are alive with us right now. I feel like the two are mismatched, because Memorial Day is treated like Veterans Day. Everyone goes out and barbecues and stuff. And then Veterans Day is treated like Memorial Day, where everyone mourns all of the soldiers who never came home and died overseas or died in war. And I personally do not like that. I guess it comes from it really comes from Veterans Day being kind of like the original Memorial Day, because it was Armistice Day originally here in America, and so we remembered all of the soldiers who had fought and died in the First World War. And in Britain, that's still held over as Remembrance Sunday, and it is kind of like well, it really is Memorial Day for the British, but it's also Veterans Day as well. But that's one thing I've always found a little bit weird, and I would like to see here in America, considering that we have a specific day for the dead, which is Memorial Day, and then we have a specific day for those who are living, which is Veterans Day. I would really like to see that the holidays are actually reflective of that, where we celebrate the living veterans, the ones who fought heroically for the nation and are still here today on Veterans Day, and then a more solemn day for all of those who passed on Memorial Day. I would like to kind of see the holidays shifted into that respectively. But in Britain, Remembrance Sunday will always be Remembrance Sunday. There is nothing to change there. I think the Remembrance Sunday is a beautiful holiday in the United Kingdom, and it pays great homage to all of those great men who died for the nation. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, but you were absolutely correct on that, Bullwinkle, and I thank you once again for support and throwing in your 2 cents on that. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here is also from Bullwinkle, who puts in a 10 and says, Veterans Day is for the rest of us.
And thank you for the support. And that is true, Bullwinkle. Veterans Day is for the rest of everyone who really made it home, that didn't get wounded beyond recognition or dead. And I got to thank you for the support once again. And I got to say that hopefully, I think the holidays should change. And also, someone said in the chat, and let me make sure I got it. Adam McLean said, mourning and celebrating simultaneously is a very difficult thing to do. And the one that wins is mourning, because you can't mourn and celebrate, because then you feel awkward celebrating. So then it ends up just being mourning only. And then Veterans Day becomes a very sad day, because there's no celebration of the veterans here. It's just a mourning of everyone who passed, and that's what Memorial Day is for. And so that's kind of why I want to see a more clear separation of the two, where Veterans Day is a celebration while Memorial Day is not. It's more of a solemn remembrance, because it's really hard to do the two at the same time. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and I thank you so much once again for the support, Bullwinkle, and I hope I was able to cover all the bases on my opinion on that, but you are absolutely correct on the statements of fact. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one is going to go to Ed. This is Irish Ed, by the way, and he puts in a $10 donation. A huge shout out to you, Irish Ed, for that support. And he said, can we read off the earlier chat about his dad? And Ed, sadly, I don't have the earlier chat, and I think it's so far up in the spreadsheet here that I don't even have it. So if you'd like to resend it, we can read it off for you. And just make sure you tag me in the chat. But Enforcer, what say you?
And of course, Irish Ed, we could reread that in the chat, but sadly, we don't have it at the moment. And the live chat does move fast. Right now, we actually have already gotten 15,000 live chats over the course of the night. So sadly, we wouldn't be able to find it at all. But if you want to resend it, we will read it. But thank you so much once again for support, Irish Ed. Classic Irish Ed from Pennsylvania. And I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And once we see that in the live chat, we will circle right back to it and read it off. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to James Reyes, who puts in a 5 and says, love you guys.
And love you too. And thank you for the support and helping this channel keep on running and making this channel a reality and making it possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are about to move on to this. But before Amanda Brada said, Enforcer and Enforcer Man, you clearly aren't Scots or Irish. Ever heard of a wake, cry, mourn, get drunk, dance, and do something else, all at the same event? And we aren't, we are technically Scottish and Irish, but really most of our family is English and Welsh. So we have a different way of going about things with that. A funeral is supposed to be solemn all the way through. There is no wake I'm guessing that the kind of funerals we have, because I've been to a good bit of them, I'm guessing the funerals we have are English funerals, because there is no celebrations of any kind or drinking or anything done at our funerals. And when we have seen that in the past, I think we've only seen it at one. It was met by disgust by the entire family. We were all like, what is this? That's how we looked at it, because I guess that's a difference a little bit that we carried over from being mostly English. But with that, I hope that does address it well, because no, we aren't really that Scotch. We are not really that Scottish or Irish. We have a little bit in us, but most of the family's English, in Welsh. But with that,
Got a little bit of Scottish in you, man.
a little bit of Scottish in you, Governor. But we're mostly English and Welsh. And while the Welsh are Celtic and have their own culture, Wales has been a part of England for ever since really the 1300s, so the cultures kind of melded together, and I guess that the funeral customs, at least in the modern day, are almost identical to each other in that nature. But with that, I hope that does address that well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Frostbite Productions, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Frostbite. Excuse me. Has the nuclear watchdog org say anything about the attack to the early nuclear radar station and the same org that checks on the nuclear power plants?
I actually didn't hear anything about that from them. I would have to be quite honest. I have to declare ignorance because I haven't looked at them lately to see, and I would assume that they haven't, because the nuclear warning folks who talk about other kinds of situations. This isn't really a nuclear site. It is a radar meant to detect nuclear threats coming in towards Russia, but it's not necessarily a nuclear installation in its own right. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Frostbite Productions. And also, I saw your comment earlier in the chat when I gave you a huge shout out for making that intro. And you're like, oh, thank you so much. I'm more than happy to do it. And thank you so much once again, because that was a very cool intro. And if we ever get the chance to use it, we are going to use it. I promise you that. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Bruce Lee. He's putting in a 5. And thank you very much, Bruce Lee, for that support. He says, for the Cracker Fund, LSA, and say hi to the corgis for me. And how about a plum?
Oh, hello there. Would you like a plum? Hey, it's that time, Andy. That was enough. That was enough to do it. It's that time of the night.
Pull him up.
Pull him up. Pull him up. Marmot on the roof. Or something like that, but hello there. Oh, hello. It's the Marmot.
Hey. Look, it's that thick creature again.
Hello there. Would you like a rock? Or would you like a plum? They're both delicious.
Hello there, Governor. Would you like a plum or would you like some rock? I notice I'm spitting up blood here, Governor. It's not good. It's not looking good on the prognosis, Governor. I've got the islands of the liver, Governor. I got too much rock.
Aw, man. I'm going to realign your jaw. Why in the world did I sound like Chris from Family Guy right there? I was like, oh, don't do it.
No, don't realign the jaw. No.
Whoa, look. I'm gonna take you out. I'm gonna take you out back behind the pool, and I'm gonna realign your jaw. No, man. Look. I have a hole in my scalp. It's big and it's bald, and I'm shirtless, and I'm gonna beat you. I'm gonna hurt you. There's just something like that, man. Oh my goodness. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we love to see the Marmot. We love the Marmot, don't we? Like, we all love the Marmot. Alan the Marmot is a icon of the channel at this point. And I got to thank you so much for the support and allowing us to throw Alan the Marmot up on screen for a little bit, because everyone loves to see the Marmot. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one is going to go to CK Bold, who puts in a 5 and says, take a live chat question. And CK Bold put in that regular. He put in that number 5. And the live chat question is going to go to the Cobra, who says, have we heard any news of the F-16s that are in Ukraine yet?
We have not. We have heard that they will be there very soon, though, most likely within weeks. That is what we've heard at the moment, but we haven't heard of them inside of Ukraine right now. But with that, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Love is Everything, who puts in a 5 and has some kind words about Zelenskyy, so I shall do the voice.
I just want to say Zelenskyy is the perfect leader for Ukraine during this awful time. I'm proud of him.
That is great to hear. I thank you once again. Love is everything.
I can't do that too much. That's going to hurt my voice, but still.
It does. It grates your vocal cords. I don't know how he keeps it up.
It is like a cheese grater. It is very tough.
But you know, I'm gonna try and imitate his English voice, like when he speaks English, because he would be like, "De chance," like that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna have to come up with how to do that, so that way it'll be easier on me. But still, love is everything. Very true. Zelenskyy is a pretty good leader in these tough and trying times for Ukraine, and hopefully he'll be able to lead them all the way to victory. And I think he might be able to. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. Love is everything. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Sully Canuck, who puts in a 10 Canadian, and thank you very much, Sully. He says, I appreciate your thoughts and prayers for all the veterans and for those who gave the ultimate sacrifice.
And I thank you so much for the support, Sully Canuck. And I'm more than happy to give condolences, thoughts and prayers to veterans, or really those who gave their ultimate sacrifice and died in the name of this nation. For those people, their lives ended very early. But their lives ended to make sure that everyone else's life in this nation would continue on the exact same way it was the day before. Which sounds like such a mundane and pointless thing to die for, but the fact of the matter is that if it wasn't for those folks dying, those people's lives would be changing drastically each and every day. And they die to make sure that everyone else can live the lives that they are always living each and every day and take for granted. And that's something that no one really thinks about much, no one really gives a lot of respect for. These folks, these people who die for this nation aren't dying to change things. They're dying to keep things the way they are, the way y'all like them to be, the way everyone likes it to be. And that's something, in my opinion, that is far more important to fight and die for than to change anything. And that's why I respect a lot of those soldiers who fought and died, because they kept things the way they were. And that's something that is truly insane. Think about it. If those soldiers in say the First World War didn't die, World War I would have dragged out. Who knows what that would have done to the United States, but things wouldn't have been the same. And all those people who died in World War II to fight the Germans and the Imperial Japanese, if they hadn't done that, what in the world would the world look like today? How much would have American lives changed because of that? They wouldn't have been the same lives they went to bed with. They would have been completely different ones when they woke up. And that's something that those folks are dying for. They were dying to keep people in this country living the same lives that they always knew, and they don't even realize it. And those people died for that. And that is, when you put it that way, one of the most ultimate sacrifices ever. It's not a death for change. It's a death to try and make sure that the folks they love and care about have the same lives they always had. And that is something that really shows a lot of love and dedication, or a lot of commitment, at least, on those ends of those soldiers who laid down their lives for that cause. But still, thank you so much once again for support, Sully Canuck, and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you for being our Lee Spring Army Navy veteran from the Canadian Navy. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Bullwinkle once again, who puts in a 5. That says your poll ignored the person who served in more than one branch. Me, the USMC, USN, USA National Guard. And we only have 4 options, sadly.
Yeah, Bullwinkle, when you said that, I was like, dang, everyone always wants a 5th option, and we never have room for a 5th option. Because YouTube only allows us to have 4. And then also, sorry to the Coast Guard and the Space Force, because y'all got screwed. Y'all weren't even in the poll either. So if you're in the Space Force or the Coast Guard, sorry. I'm sorry. We couldn't even put y'all in. But I wish we could have had a lot more options, because there's so many different branches, like, hell, you could be in the Army Reserves, the National Guard, you could be in the regular army, you could be in anything. I mean, hell, there are actually militias that still exist. Like, New York has a naval militia still, and you could have served in that, although that's very rare. But, you know, like, there were so many options we could throw in, but thank you for the support, Bullwinkle, and I'm sorry that we couldn't include that, but still, really cool to hear that you served over multiple branches. Some people do that. Usually I've heard that people from the Marines go to the Army. Like, that's one thing that I've heard a fairly good bit. I don't know, maybe it's because people, like, some people in the Marines just don't like the Marines, but some, like, with the Marines, one thing I've seen is that it's like a litmus test thing. You either love the Marines or you hate the Marines once you get in the Marines. Like, other branches, people could dislike it and they'll be fine with it, but with the Marines, it's like a knee-jerk reaction. Either you love it so much you're going to be a Marine forever, or you dislike it so much, you request a transfer to another branch like the Army, and you go to the Army. But with that, thank you so much once again for support, Bullwinkle, and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Russ Rizzo, who put in a $7 donation. And it's good to see you once again, Russ. And thank you very much for that support. He says, I know we in the LSA like marmots and enjoy eating crackers. Have you seen the video of the marmot enjoying eating crackers?
I haven't. Let's see if I can go pull that up. YouTube. Hey, yo, what's up, YouTube? We want to find that marmot eating crackers.
Could I have a cracker?
Let's see here. Alright, we got a fat marmot eating a cracker. A funny video of a chubby marmot eating a cracker. What other videos do we have of marmots eating crackers? There's a lot of videos of marmots.
Just feeding the wild animals the crackers, man. Who's walking out there with a pack of crackers?
Man, this ain't no wild marmot, Governor. This is a domesticated marmot right here. Look at it.
A domesticated?
Little chubby fella.
Oh, man.
Isn't that precious?
They've given him too many.
It's just doing its thing. Oh, that's cute.
I do like that marmot, though. Much more appealing than the one in the painting.
Yeah, this one's precious looking. It's just doing its own thing, eating its cracker. This thing is cute.
That thing has definitely had too many of them. Goodness.
Wait, can you just buy a marmot? Marmots for sale.
Do they get along with corgis?
Let's see. Why is marmot? Marmot for sale.
I feel like it might be illegal to own these or something. I just have a suspicion.
Let's see. Hang on. Let's see. It's forbidden in the United States to have a pet marmot. So
I thought it was.
I be dipped. We sadly cannot have pet marmots here in the States, but
look, what's this person doing, Governor? Oh, they're uploading crimes.
Maybe they're not from America. Maybe they're from another country. Not. But I love this. I love watching this little chubby marmot just chewing on this cracker. It looks like it's so peaceful. It looks like it's really loving life. And I respect that, hell, that marmot. You do you, marmot. You do you. But anyways,
indeed.
Thank you so
much. And also,
much.
I'm just joking about the whole crime and the marmot thing. If they can have a marmot, we want a marmot.
I want a marmot. I really do. Like, I think they're precious. But with that, thank you so much for support. And thank you for sharing that video with us, Russ Russo, because that was a really good one to show. And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for sharing that with us, because I will never forget that video of that cute little marmot eating this little cracker. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
All right. And also someone just came in and said, I thought this was about Ukraine. I'm leaving. Bye. It's like, well, we're kind of in the question segment. And also, the stream usually ends around 12:30. You poor devil, you. But anyways, jumping into our next one here, we have a $5 super chat from DVN303, who says that Tom Exman is begging for Alan the Marmot. Oi, about bloody time you took me out of box, mate. Live chat question.
Oh, but we shared the marmots.
We already got him.
We already got him. He's already been here. So I hope Tom.
I'm gonna shoot a fat one.
I hope Tom Exman was satiated by the marmot, because we did get to see two of them. We got to see our marmot on the painting by Jacob Leguzzi, I believe his name is, and then we got to see the marmot eating a cracker. And so with that, I hope that was marmot enough for Tom Exman. But thank you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And we will make sure to grab a live chat. And so what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and the live chat question is going to go to Mike. And he said, what's going on with the Freedom of Russia Legion in Belgorod?
Oh, they're not even there. We get that question like every day. But they're not even there anymore. They withdrew about a month ago due to high losses and not really achieving their objective. So overall, the Free Russian Army's incursion into Belgorod could be considered a failure. But, you know, hopefully they'll be able to regroup and try and get at it again. And hopefully next time they'll be more successful. But with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for sponsoring that live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Teslans, who puts in a 5 New Zealand and says, good on you, lads.
And good on you, Teslans. And thank you for being one of our New Zealand viewers. And thank you for saying good on you, lads, because we like to try our best. And I'm glad that you believe that it is our best, Teslans. And so with that, Thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, huge shout out to Mark Andre Burnett, who put in a $5 donation.
Oh!
And huge shout out to you, Mark, for supporting the channel Big League. And Jaka put in a 2, along with Uncovered Cube, who put in a 2 as well. They're also supporting the channel Big League, and we appreciate it very much. And of course, thank you very much for keeping the whole thing running. It's much appreciated, and I forgot where I was going with that, but anyways. Moving on from that, we are moving into our next super chat, which goes to Cody Wilson, who also throws in a 5, and says, take a question from the room.
Oh, I thank you so much for the support, and look at you, aren't you? Well, take a question from the room. Instead of the chat. But we will take a question from the room. And so, Matthew, what question do we have from the room?
And the question from the room goes to N. Hansen. I wonder if they're related to Chris Hansen, I wonder. You're on Dateline NBC. But anyways, N. Hansen said, will unrest in Georgia turn into a full-scale uprising?
I'm not entirely sure. I'll be quite honest. I don't really pay attention to what's going on in Georgia much to be able to gauge it all too well and understand what's going on down there. So at the moment, I'd honestly have to declare ignorance. I have seen this gotten pretty heated. It's not as heated as what's happening in New Caledonia, though, way out here in the middle of the sea. It's actually gotten violent out here. But beyond that, which is an entirely different area of the world, by the way. I don't know why I had to throw that in. But I don't really know how that will unfold in Georgia, so unfortunately I'd have to declare ignorance on that at the moment due to a lack of information on my end. But still, hope that does address it quite well indeed. But it's a very good question. Just sadly, it's a little over my head at the moment. And so with that, thank you so much once again for sponsoring the live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is a $20 super chat from Anthony. And thank you very much, Anthony, for that support. He said, today marks the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Harmonville Fire Company. And our fire company was founded in 1924 and had been serving the citizens of Plymouth Township, Pennsylvania, ever since. And please give them a huge shout.
Hey, huge shout out. Can you read? I'm just kidding with you. Huge shout out to the Harmonville Fire Department of the Plymouth Township of Pennsylvania. Let's see if we can find their fire department somewhere around here. Let's see here. Let's see. I'm trying to find it. Legoland is in the mall. No way. That's actually really cool. I've never been to a Legoland. I wanted to when I was a kid. But let's see here. Oh, dang. I can't
Lego my ego.
Lego my ego, Governor. But beyond that, sadly, I cannot find the fire department. But, nevertheless, I do thank you for the support. Wait a minute, we got 2 pictures here. Wow, this place actually looks pretty nice. Like, I'm not gonna lie, just from the streets, they look well paved. And that says a lot about a place. But beyond that, thank you so much once again for support, and a huge, huge shout out to the Harmonville Fire Company that was founded in 1924 and is celebrating its 100th anniversary here today. What's really cool, actually, is that we have a decent amount of firefighters who watch this channel, and I've actually been out to a fire department on occasion because the entire fire department watches the channel. Huge shout out to the folks out there like Confarelli and them who are in that fire department because y'all are some really cool folks. It's always fun to drop by out there and say hello to y'all and get to see what y'all are doing out there. But beyond that, really cool to know that your fire department is celebrating its 100th anniversary. Fire departments are such an influential and key part, really, of the American services, government services that have been provided throughout the years, and it was one of the first government services or public services that was provided by any government here in the United States, and that is a very interesting fact. It is as old as the Postal Service. Outdates, well, it dates the police by a massive amount, which is very interesting and always cool to think about how fire departments have been such an influential part of American history. And I got to thank you so much once again for that support and sharing that with us, Anthony, so that way I could give a huge shout out to the fire department. I don't know if you're a part of it or not. And also, they put in the address 2100 Butler Pike. So 2100 Butler Pike. Butler Pike. And so, let's see. Here we go. And there is the fire department right there. So let's take a look at this. Oh yeah, this is honestly just a little bit bigger than the fire department I've been to. But that is really cool. Look at that. The Harmonville Fire Company. That is really neat. And really, thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for letting us take a look at it too. Because this building is made of brick. And honestly, it looks really sharp made of brick like that. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address it well. And also, Tony, you are correct. Ancient Rome had fire brigades. But fire brigades in ancient Rome were very different than the fire brigades today. Because back then, they were a bit of a business venture, more so. Because what happened with ancient Roman fire departments, and I'll quickly talk about this because this is really funny. In ancient Rome, Matthew, when a fire broke out, the fire brigade would come running around to go put out the fire. And the guy who would run the fire brigade would be like, oh, wow, that's a terrible fire. If you sell that building to me, how much is it worth? 100 sestertii? Okay, so if you sell it to me for 20 sestertii, I'll put out the fire. If not, I'll let it burn to the ground. So that's how they did it back then.
I'm not gonna lie, it kind of works that way today because they send you a bill now.
Wait, the fire department sends a bill?
Around here, they send us a bill.
No way. Are you kidding?
Well, at least for the ambulance thing.
Oh, well, I think that's the ambulance. I think if a building is on fire, though, I don't think you get a bill for that. But
well, no, the fire department sent a bill.
Huh.
It was the ambulance from the fire department. They sent the fire truck out.
How much, like, well, I'm not going to ask that much. I was like, how much was that even? Like, because it wasn't us. It was someone else who had to have the ambulance. But I was like, how much was that even? Because no one ever told me. But that's news. That's news to me. But that's how fire departments in ancient Rome ran. And it's wild to think about that because nowadays, at least from what I understand, fire departments are supposed to be provided as public service, paid for by your local municipality. But still, really interesting. And huge shout out once again, Anthony, and thank you for support and allowing us to shout out that incredible fire department from way up there in the Plymouth Township of Pennsylvania. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one is going to go to Fishing and Kayaking, who puts in a $5 donation. And thank you very much, Fishing and Kayaking, for that support. They said all allies of Taiwan should send a ship or two to have an inner perimeter around Taiwan. And what you think?
I don't think that'd be a bad idea. Really, I think that just for unified chain of command reasons, so that way it doesn't get complicated, the U.S. Navy should just go out there and deal with it, and maybe the Japanese Navy as well. But I wouldn't really want to include 1 or 2 ships from everyone who was on Taiwan's side, because that would probably cause a lot of chain of command issues down the road, and also a whole bunch of communication issues as well. But I like the idea, though. I like the idea, but I would largely say that the U.S. Navy and the Japanese Navy should be the ones to respond to this issue and just keep the chain of command or the communications spread as narrow as possible. But with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Backhoe Mafia, who puts in two $2 donations. And they don't like China. They don't like China at all. And they're going to tell them. But Enforcer, what say you?
I mean, we don't really like China either. Communist China, that is. We like the real China, the Taiwan China. They're cool. But the communist China, not great. And I would thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I would have to largely agree with the sentiment that I don't really like the communist Chinese. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
The next one goes to Bruce Lee once again, who puts in a 2 this time and says carrier at China-Taiwan waters as power play. Phone.
Phone? Ring, ring. Oh, hello?
No, with an F. Phone.
I'm not getting it.
Oh, phone.
F-O-N-E.
Is that the name of the carrier?
Fleet.
Is there a carrier called Phone?
It's probably some fleet operation. So hold on 1 second. Phone.
Man, calling the USS Phone. We need some help.
Let's see. Phone. Says the informal spelling of phone. Like it does. I don't know. But still, I thank you for the support. And there is
Bruce,
a carrier.
Tell us what phone means, Bruce.
But there is a carrier group near to Taiwan at the moment. That is true. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Reed Daniels, who puts in a 2 and says, love the idea of trial by combat. Zelenskyy versus Putin.
I mean, that wouldn't be that bad. Zelenskyy would win, like hands down. So I would have to say, yeah, I mean, why not? Let's go for it. And so with that, thank you once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And with that, that rounds out all of our super chat questions. So once again, huge shout out to everyone who's donated to keep the channel running tonight, because we greatly appreciate it, and that's the support that keeps the channel running. So with that, we're now moving into our live chat questions, and specifically the Morse code of the stream. And tonight, it was solved by Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J., Rumpelstiltskin, David Millsaps, and Toxic Bananas. They said the Morse code for today reads, Putin really thinks he can just freeze the line like that. The only thing freezing are the Russian assets. LSA.
And that is the sound of money. And y'all got that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. I gotta congratulate y'all for getting that correct on the 821st day of the war, because y'all got that sick beat right. That sick roast right. It's like a fine Colombian roast. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Thank y'all once again. And with that, we have one more super chat to address, and then we're going to move on to our live chats. But considering that we're so pressed for time, considering that the stream is now 3 hours and 30 minutes long, we're only going to be able to answer about 3 live chats, and then we're going to be rounding out. So that way we can get to sleep, wake up, and then get back cranking at everything tomorrow, and make sure to have another kicker stream for all of y'all again. And so with that, Matthew, get us into the next one.
And man, I tell you what, we got Drop Nation up in here, man. They've got the music.
Man, they got that drip drip.
They got that bass on that channel. I'm telling you what. And it's good to see. And they put in the heart, by the way. Thank you very much for the support for the channel. And we have a 20 New Zealand from Colin Lyon. And thank you very much, Colin, for that support as well. He says, cheers for the work.
And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you help to make this thing possible. And thank you so much for the cheers for the work in helping this thing to keep on running, because folks like you help to make this thing a reality and help to keep this channel possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And a huge shout out to Drop Nation for being in here and not only dropping those sick beats, but dropping in the live chat just to say hello. And thank you so much for enjoying this channel as well. And with that, we are now going to be moving on into the live chats. We're sadly only going to be able to get 3, and then we'll be rounding out for the night. And so with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Tony Stankard, who roasted me earlier, but I'm going to get his live chat. He said, I'm wondering, whatever happened with the flooding, and is it still going on, or has it ended, or what?
The flooding in Russia has subsided, from what we know, although it did cause a decent amount of damage when it occurred. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Good question, though, Tony Stankard, but I hope that wraps everything up with a nice bow. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Uncovered Cube, who says, if Putin is not going to talk to the president of Ukraine, then who is he going to talk to?
That's the question. Who? I mean, like, if the president of Ukraine isn't legitimate, then I would guess that he would argue that the entire government of Ukraine isn't legitimate, considering that Zelenskyy appointed all the top officials. He's the president, so he does that. So I would have no idea who they would talk to. I guess that's another one of those Russian stupid plays to just make things more difficult to make them difficult. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person who put in the lucky last question of the night?
And we have a super chat from Joe Hobo00 who put in a 10 and said, I've been lurking here since about day 6, I think. And we got Drop Nation coming out who was lurking, supporting the channel, and we got Joe Hobo coming out as well. He said, you had about 800 subs on day 6, and I watched you guys nightly and appreciate what you do, and very impressed with how far you've taken it, and Slav Ukraine.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, Joe Hobo, and helping this channel to keep running. And you've been here for an incredibly long time. And nice to know that the lurkers come out here and there, because we love to see it, Joe Hobo, and thank you once again for the support. Also, thank you so much for enjoying what we do, because we've tried our best, and I'm glad to know that you find this to be top notch and that we've taken it really far. And we have so many places that we want to keep taking this channel and all of y'all to brand new heights, to brand new places, and to continue to cover this news with each and every one of y'all here at our side, because we are more than happy to have y'all here every single day and every single night. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Joe Hobo. Slav Ukraini. And with that, now that we've gotten through that super chat, huge thanks once again to Joe Hobo. It's now time for us to move on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Hector Monk, who says, would you agree that some AC-130 Spectres could be a whoop-ass help to the upcoming F-16 fleet?
that is possible. However, AC-130 gunships are largely obsolete. Even in Afghanistan, we would only allow them to operate under the cover of night with complete air superiority, meaning that there was no chance of ground fire. Any chance of ground fire with an AC-130, with the altitudes they fly at and at the speeds they fly at, they are incredibly vulnerable to any form of ground fire, meaning that inside of the war in Ukraine, they would most likely get shot down before they even made it close to the front lines due to how vulnerable of an aircraft it is and how limited of a role it really serves. It would be pretty cool if we were talking about fighting an enemy with absolutely no air defense, but the Russians still have air defense, at least some. And for the ranges that an AC-130 would have to get to on the front lines, which would literally be orbiting over the front, they would most likely get shot down, and it would pose a great risk to the pilots and crews of those AC-130s, and also to the Ukrainian forces as well, as who knows what would happen once an AC-130 got shot down. But with that, I hope that does address that question the best I can. And with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank every single one of y'all so much once again for watching. Tonight at the peak, there was 7.5 thousand people here. And over the course of the stream, 51,000 people have watched it, and we've gotten 2,830 likes on the stream. I've got to thank all of y'all so much once again for watching tonight. It is always an honor and a pleasure to be able to get to cover this news with each and every single one of y'all every single night. I would not give this up for anything else in the world. I truly love doing this, and I truly love getting to be here with all of y'all and tell you all this news each and every single night. If y'all did enjoy tonight and you're brand new, make sure to subscribe, like, and comment, because it helps us to be able to keep this channel running, and it helps us to be able to put a smile on our faces and have a bright and positive outlook to continue to get the news out to all of y'all who enjoy it. Not only that, but we are live on air 6 days a week, every day but Monday, at the exact same time, covering the news in the exact same way that we did tonight. So if you enjoyed it, you can always count on making this a part of your nightly schedule. Not only that, but every single day that we can, whenever there's big enough news in the middle of the day, here at local time, we put out a short war summary, which is around 10 to 15 minutes long, and recaps some of the major events of that day of the war. So if long-form streams like this really aren't for you, then our shorter-form videos most likely would be. But with that, thank you all so much once again for watching. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And with that, good night, folks. Thank you, of course, for another excellent stream tonight. It's been a big one, and it's been a good one. And with that, Slava Ukraine, Heroam Slava. We'll see you all tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern for the nightly war news stream once again. And hopefully, if there's enough news, midday for the short war summary as well. And with that, thank you all, and good night.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.